Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite show on the internet, Raw Law Unfiltered, with your favorite host, the one and only me, the DY Guy Plus. Today, we are going to continue with the Karen Reed murder trial. For those of you who are not familiar with the case, allow me to enlighten you. A woman from Massachusetts is accused of committing a crime, a murder against her boyfriend, allegedly hitting him with the back of her car. Now, the only evidence that they have of impact is one broken taillight. There is no other damage to the vehicle. So the impact would have to have been made with such precision and such accuracy. Also, going at about 35 miles an hour in reverse in the snow at accelerated speeds. Now, not only that, John O'Keefe's injuries, he sustained no broken bones, no broken fractures, no bone fractures. His pelvis, his hips, everything is intact. The only damage that he has is to his head. So imagine how he would have had to have been leaning into the car in order to get the injuries that he has sustained. The doctors have determined that there was blunt force trauma to the head that was the cause of death, plus hypothermia. Yeah, no. Jennifer McCabe, what are you hiding? Speaking of Jennifer McCabe, by the way, for those of you just joining us today at 6 p.m., I am going to premiere the next installment of Jennifer McCabe's cross-examination by Alan Jackson. I'm currently working on the series. I'm about halfway done. Her cross-examination was about 6 hours total, and I'm going to make about 12 episodes out of that. So each one is about 30 minutes long, and plus commentary, of course. So like it's going to total out to be basically 30 minutes plus 30 minutes. So and then each episode is about 30 minutes total. And court is in session. Look at that. Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All parties having anything to do before the Honorable First Justice Beverly Canoni, now sitting in the Dedham Superior Court within the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth and this good court. Thank you.
22-117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I have counsel identify themselves for the record?
Adam Lyles for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Young.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. McLaughlin.
Good morning, again, Your Honor. Alan Jackson.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Alan is back.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Yannetti from Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Yannetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. So I have those 3 questions for you. Is everyone able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left here last week?
Yes.
Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Yes. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we were last here? No. Everyone said no issue. Now, jurors, before we start, I do want to give you that instruction again on what is evidence. So in considering the testimony of any witness, remember that the questions that are asked are not evidence. Only the answers, which are really the only part of the
Wait, why are you
exchange
saying
between
that
the
to
lawyers
them?
and the witnesses that are under oath, are evidence. So if a witness is asked, isn't it true that after you learned that your uncle left you money in his will, you poisoned him? And the witness answers no. Then based solely on that question and answer, there's no evidence that the witness has an uncle, that the uncle had a will, that the uncle left the witness money, that the witness knew that.
Why does she need to clarify that to the
or
jury?
That the witness poisoned him. So keep that in mind for reference when you're listening to testimony. All right, Mr. Lally, who's your first witness?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth would call Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara to the stand.
Okay.
Lally sounds a little under the weather today. Why would she need to clarify that to the jury? Oh, there's Kelly. There's Kelly right here. I've been talking to her all weekend because I'm trying to get in the courtroom. and she's my conduit. So hopefully I'll be in court next week. No, I understand that, but it's still like it's annoying because the judge just undermined cross-examination for the defense. That's all she did. It's really annoying. Oh, she said that multiple times? Really? Wow, what a C word. Hey, Adventurous Words. Good morning. Summer Golden, good morning. Welcome to all the usual suspects. Boosh. Have I told Chandler about her? About who? The Judge Bev? What?
Anytime you're ready.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
It's Kevin O'Hara, O-H-A-R-A.
Kevin O'Hara.
And how many employees, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police,
Another copper.
How long in total have you been a member of the state police?
just over 22 years,
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant?
4.5 years.
And what is your?
He's witness number 17 on the list.
I'm the team commander for the State Police Special Emergency Response Team, which is also known as CERT.
And the CERT team within the state police, approximately how many members of that unit are?
We have 61 team members, 4 of which are full-time, including myself. The other 57 have other primary duty assignments, and CERT is an additional duty for them.
Now, generally speaking, what are sort of the duties and responsibilities, or what is it that the CERT unit within the state police does?
CERT is the primary search and rescue team for the state police. We conduct lost missing person searches, evidence searches. We do security or crowd control.
This is
at
witness number
large-scale events
53.
Such as the 4th of July, the Boston
There's about
Marathon, Gillette
36
Stadium,
left.
dignitary security.
34, 35, 36, give or take.
How long have you been assigned to that particular unit?
Since 2014.
Because the witness list has a total of 87.
Now, were you working with that unit on January 29th, 2020?
Yes, I was, sir.
And at some point in the afternoon on that day, were you contacted by Lieutenant Brian Tully of the state?
Yes, at 2:32 p.m., Lieutenant Tully gave me a phone call.
Now, as far as Lieutenant Tully.
Why is he so nervous?
with him, were you familiar
His
with
voice is cracking.
Supervisors?
Yes, I know he's the supervisor for the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit.
Now, if you could describe to the jury sort of the process by which your particular unit is activated, is that an instantaneous thing, or how does that work?
This is O'Hara.
Normally, we'll receive a courtesy phone call, which is what I received from Lieutenant Tully, seeing if we were available.
Lieutenant
This
Kevin
is-
O'Hara.
We had members that could respond today. For
MSP.
instance, he had ongoing. I told him we would be available. He then has to submit a request through his chain of command, which is the Division of Investigative Services. I also have to submit a request up my chain of command, which is through Field Services. To get approval on my end, has to be approved by the Special Operations Commander, which is a major. And depending on the request, it may even go above his level to the Lieutenant Colonel, who is in charge of the Division of Field Services.
So that initial call that you received about 2:32 in the afternoon, how would you characterize that first call?
Again, I'd say it was more of a courtesy notification, just to make sure we weren't on another assignment, that we had members who could respond that day. Obviously, there was the weather issue that day, making sure members could respond to the scene.
And the weather issue that day, what kind of weather issue?
It was a blizzard. I think most areas had received between 18 to 20 inches of snow.
And as far as that initial phone call with Lieutenant Tully, as far as what was described to you, as far as the situation that you're responding to, or what if anything did he say about it?
He said they were conducting a death investigation on the town of Canton, and he was looking for CERT assistance with an evidence search.
And how did you respond to that request on that initial phone?
I told him we would have members that would be able to respond, and that I would start working on the approval process. Looking out my own window, I hadn't been outside my house that day. I had large snow drifts at the end of my driveway. I told him building a roster and having members clear their driveway at least an hour plus on a response time.
And following that initial conversation, did Lieutenant Tully reach back out to you at some point?
Yeah, I'm not positive if he called me or if I called him. I think after I'd cleared my driveway, I spoke to my captain just to make sure, see what the status was on the approval process on our end. He said we were cleared on our end. So either Lieutenant Tully called me or I may have called him because I was getting nervous that now that my driveway was cleared, that the town plow was going to come back and bury the end of my driveway again. So I'm not sure who called who, but I called him and told him we were cleared through the Division of Field Services. He also told me that we were cleared on his end. The approval requests have been approved.
And do you know approximately what time of day it was that you had that second conversation?
I can't hear Lally's questions, by the
Probably
way.
about 3:45 because we sent out an alert to our team at 3:48 telling them that we were authorized to respond to Canton.
And as far as your team was concerned, can you speak a bit about sort of that process as far as the response and who was to respond and how you were able to sort of pull together the body to respond?
So CERT is broken up. We're geographically dispersed across the state. So we have an East team, West team. I had reached out to a supervisor from the West team, someone I knew who I wouldn't request to drive that far in the snowy conditions to set up a roster for us. So he sent out an alert to the team at 2:53 requesting an availability list. I told him to just confirm that the people responding either had a truck or some kind of four-wheel drive vehicle to respond.
And where was it that you were told, or where did you eventually respond to?
Lieutenant Tully told us that we were going to 34 Fairview Road in Canton.
And from the time that you cleared your driveway, secured response from your higher-ups, about what time was it that you left, or how long did it take you to get from your home to 34 Fairview?
Well, like I stated, the alert went out authorizing the team to start responding at 3:48. I got the exact address via text from Lieutenant Tully at 4:10. We sent out another alert message at 4:17, just reminding people to bring shovels, brooms, rakes, etc. I left my house at 4:13 in the afternoon, and I got on scene at 4:56. So it took me 43 minutes to drive there.
And from your house to that location, Ken, about how, absent sort of the weather, how long a drive was that moment?
Probably 20 minutes, sir.
And when you respond, how many other members of your unit were able to respond to the scene?
Initially, we dispatched 8 members, including myself. Only 7 of us made it to the scene. One of the members could not get off his street. The end of his street had been plowed in by his town, and he had called his town DPW to try to get some assistance, but he was not able to make it to the scene. So we only had 7, again, after we initially started 8, which did kind of shift some of the dynamics of how we ran the search on scene.
And getting to that in a moment, when you first arrived on scene, if anyone else preceded your arrival, who was on scene?
Just one other trooper from CERT, Trooper Jay Bousselet, was on scene. I believe he arrived 2 minutes prior to my arrival.
Could you say that name again and spell it for us,
Yes,
please?
sir. It's Trooper Jason Bousselet. It's Beausoleil.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Lieutenant Rao, when you arrived on scene, where did you park in relation to the house, or where was Trooper Bousselet in relation?
Trooper Bousselet was just past the driveway of the house, so just north of the driveway. I parked almost at the end of the driveway of 34 Fairview.
And you recall, at some point, your attention was directed to an area with a flagpole, a fire hydrant, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall which direction either or both of your vehicle and Bousselet's vehicle were facing when you parked in that area of the driveway?
We were facing away from the flagpole originally. Eventually, we moved Trooper Bousselet's vehicle back towards the flagpole. Just we wanted some extra headlights to light up the scene, the area we would be working in.
Now, Lieutenant Tully, was he on scene when you arrived?
He was not.
And at some point, did you reach out to him?
Yes, I gave him a call. He stated he was just leaving. Canton PD would be on scene in about 5 minutes. That was probably around 5 o'clock.
Now, as far as the house that you were parked in front of, and as far as the residences on that street, who, if anyone else, as far as neighbors or anything like that, or people from the house, did you see outside of the house while at any point in time?
We didn't see anyone outside the houses. A resident of 34 Fairview exited briefly after we were first on scene. That was the only person we saw.
And exited and came down to where you were, or where did that?
No, he was, if you look at the house, you could consider two front doors, one closer to the garage, which would maybe be a mudroom or a den. Adult male exited from that door, had a hooded sweatshirt on. He asked us if we were here for what had happened earlier. We said yes, and he walked back inside the house.
Now, as far as mentioned a bit about the snow, as far as the roadway conditions of the area where you were in, what if anything did you know or observe in regards to the roadway and how it had been treated with plow prior to plow?
The plow had really only cleared the center of the road. There was a good 3 to 4 foot snow drift coming off each side of the road. So maybe enough for 2 vehicles to pass, but not cleared curb to curb.
And as far as Lieutenant Tully arriving on scene around 5, at some point did he, what if anything, where did he direct?
He had instructed us that the death investigation involved a motor vehicle. He told us where the motor vehicle was believed to have been parked and wanted us to search from that area south towards the flagpole fire hydrant.
Now, as far as this type of search was concerned, what if any experience did you have doing this type of searching?
In blizzard conditions, we've really never done evidence searches like this. We've done missing person searches we've gone out to, but for evidence searches, nothing like this. Something, if a scene could be secured, we really wouldn't respond in a situation like this unless we really needed to.
Now, as far as the search that your team does, if you could, was it typical or was it not typical as far as conducting a search of an area that had already been gone over by another agency or by someone else within the state?
Yeah, we're a stage 2 response, so pretty much every search we've ever done has been previously searched. We're never really the first persons to search an area.
And can you describe sort of, sort of the difference between what you do as far as searching is concerned and sort of looking or making observations or things of that?
I think our training is a lot different than maybe the regular patrolman or trooper responding. There's not much training provided anymore in the academies. So we do extensive training through a lot of the search and rescue groups that we're a part of, which would be the National Association for Search and Rescue, which is NASAR. We do search and rescue initial actions. We do line searching, managing lost person incidents. We do multiple trainings a month with a team, which is different than what other personnel would get. I think traditionally, looking back to even my time before I was a member of CERT, a search would be, you go this way, I'll go that way. There was really no methodical approach to the search.
And as far as your training is concerned as it relates to this particular search, what if any sort of methodical approach did you develop or what did you employ in this?
We gridded off or marked off the area Lieutenant Tully thought would be the best area for us to search. So we had a starting point and an end point. Once all the members got on scene, we set up a line search, or what we would call a grid search, which again would just be a slow, methodical search with all of us working in unison, moving through the area.
And about how big an area was it that you initially sort of set out to search?
It was just over 50 feet, I believe, from the front door, which is the left door, looking at the house from the street, to the fire hydrant. I believe it was 59 feet.
Was that length or width?
That is length.
And as far as the width of the area that you were searching, about what kind of area were you searching?
It's about 3 to 4 feet was the snow drift coming off the curb.
Now, as far as the information that you received prior to conducting the search, were there any items that were specifically identified as far as items that you might be looking for, or what if anything was given you in relation to that?
Yeah, Lieutenant Tully had informed us that the victim, in this case, was struck by a vehicle. He believed there would be broken pieces of tail light in the area. He also stated the victim was missing his sneaker. So he asked us to search for
that there would be
both
broken pieces
both
of
those
tail
items.
light. Oh my God.
And sir, at some point point, did you ask Lieutenant Tully any questions about the vehicle in question or anything in relation to that?
After we'd found one or two of the pieces of the taillight, I asked him if we knew how much damage was to the taillight, or if he had a photo that we could get of the taillight.
And what, if anything, did he tell you?
He told us at that time the vehicle was being towed back to Canton PD, so he did not have a photo to show us.
And at any point, did he make any reference to who was coming along with the tow at Canton PD?
He said Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor were following the vehicle back to Canton PD.
You mentioned an alert that was sent out to troopers as far as to bring certain items. Can you describe to the jury sort of the process, and what many tools or implements you use, and sort of how that search was done?
So like I said, we moved Trooper Boussolet's vehicle to face the scene to give us some extra, use his headlights for extra lighting for the scene. All the team members also put on a headlamp, which would basically just be like a hiking headlamp. We all had shovels. We had a couple of rakes, the smaller garden rakes, just to kind of help us sift through the snow. And I also had a small push broom to move the snow around as well.
And you mentioned sort of the headlamps and moving the vehicle as far as the headlights on the area that you were searching. What was the visibility and what was the lighting conditions around that area at that time?
It was poor lighting. There really wasn't much as far as what we felt enough for street lighting, but with the headlamps, I mean, we had decent visibility.
So when you first arrived on scene about 4:53 p.m. or so, was it dark out there?
Yes, it was, sir.
It remained dark while you were still on scene.
Yes, sir.
And in the area that you were looking, your testimony
Who is
was-
pounding on something? Do you guys hear that noise? It's like boom,
Lighting in
boom,
that area
boom,
as far as the
boom.
hall.
Nothing that really helped the search.
What is that noise? Do you guys hear
The area
that?
that you were searching was in the area of the fire hydrant, is that correct?
We started almost directly across from the front door and moved south towards Chapman Street, towards the fire hydrant.
And to be clear, as far as the area that you were searching with shovels and the other different implements that sort of sift through the snow, where was your focus as far as the street versus the front lawn?
Our right flank was on the curb, and then we moved out across the street from there. So we were lined almost shoulder to shoulder as we moved south through the area we were searching.
You're primarily searching or entirely searching along the roadway, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And as far as some point that you, through the course of sort of shoveling and the removal of snow from that area, did you approach or come in contact with the area of grass in front lawn?
It's Lally's
He did, as,
heartbeat.
One of the members who was working along the curb, he started to clear some of the grass on the front lawn. Yes, sir.
That's really
Any
funny.
issues that you were going to encounter when you got to sort of grass?
It was very difficult to clear the snow. I don't think we had very good visibility on what we were moving, even with the push broom and the rake. It was very difficult to definitively say we'd cleared the lawn properly. So we didn't focus too much of our efforts on that area.
You referenced that only 7 members of your unit were.
It's so annoying.
In the snow at the end of the street, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And that had some impact as far as documentation of the scene, is that correct?
Correct. Normally on a search, if I'm the overall, as a team leader, I would run what you would consider a command post or be the incident commander for CERT. I would stay behind the line and kind of document our efforts, but because this was such a
hi,
small
baby.
search area, it wasn't really an issue because we weren't breaking people off into
Hi.
teams. No one was out of my sight line. And we had multiple detectives on scene that were able to fill that role for me.
Hi, Zing.
And so to that point, as far as the 7 members from your unit, in addition to the 7 members from your unit, was anyone else present during the course of that?
I believe there was 5 other members. I believe there were only 2 that I recognized from the state police. So I'm not sure who the other 3, if they were Canton detectives or Canton patrolmen, but they were all dressed in civil, plain clothes.
And as far as documentation for the scene, what, if anything, was done with reference to that?
As we began to find evidence, I spoke to Lieutenant Tully and just confirmed that he was going to document everything we were recovering via photograph and evidence log.
As far as documented with photos taken by Lieutenant Tull,
Yes, they were, sir.
and the items that were photographed, were they photographs prior to anyone sort of touching them or moving them or placing them, other than those sort of related to the search effort?
Correct. As soon as we found anything deemed as evidence, we stopped our search efforts until they were documented by Lieutenant Tully.
And in reference to your search efforts, what if anything of evidentiary value?
I found multiple pieces of red and clear taillight.
And where were they in relation to sort of the grid or the area that you had set up?
They were on the street in between the flagpole and the fire hydrant.
Sir, in addition to the pieces of red and clear plastic taillight that you uncovered, you know approximately how many pieces of that you were able to locate on that day?
I believe maybe 6 or 7 pieces.
And how big or how small or did they range in size as far as the pieces that you located?
There was 3 larger pieces, 2 red, 1 clear, and then a couple of smaller pieces.
In addition to the pieces of red and clear plastic taillight that were uncovered during the search process, what if any-
We waited for the planted evidence to arrive.
We found a sneaker.
And
Oh,
where was that sneaker located in reference to seeing your search efforts and in reference to
wait a second.
clear and red plastic?
It was same location. Generally, it was in between the flagpole and the fire hydrant. The sneaker was flush up against the curb and it was upside down. I think we had found 1 piece of taillight prior to the sneaker, and then after we found the sneaker, we found a few more additional pieces of taillight.
Now, with reference to the sneaker.
That's
and
new.
to those pieces of red and clear plastic, where were they in relation to snow that was being dug through? And by that, where were they in relation to the ground?
Can you repeat the end of that, sir?
Sure. With reference to each of the items of evidence that you're talking about, whether it be sneaker or the red and clear plastic, where were they in relation to the snow that you were digging into? Where were they in relation to the asphalt surface?
Close to the curb. As we started digging originally, the snow drift, the snowpack was pretty solid from where the plow had kind of cleared to. So once we were able to move through that, we started getting into fresh, undisturbed snow, started moving through that, which was a lot easier to move at that point. And all the items we found were close to the curb.
So my question also, sir, is sort of how deep within the snow that you were digging was each of those items?
They were all found at ground level.
And as far as the area that you were searching, beyond sort of snow drifts and plowing towards the middle of the road, how would you characterize that snow as far as observing footprints, tire tracks, or anything in that area where you were digging through and finding these items?
No, we did not see anything, sir. Like I said, it was all fresh, undisturbed snow once we got past where the plow had cleared up to.
Now, as far as this search being conducted sort of physically, you mentioned there's some sort of line that's set up, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Can you describe to the jury sort of how that line was set up? What were the different functions in different parts of the line, and where were you in relation?
So like I stated, we had we consider our right flank stood on the curb closest to the house, and then we moved left into the street. As we dug the snow out, it was originally inspected as they would pull their shovel out, make sure they didn't have anything in their shovel to the best of their ability. Then they would bring it out to the street. I was the left flank. They would dump it in the street, and I would sift through it at the end just to make sure there was no evidence that had come out to the street. Once I was positive nothing was in that snow, I would toss it onto the other side of the street. And we just continued that process as we moved south through that grid.
And the depth of the snow that you were digging through, how did that change, or how was that any different from sort of one portion of the section to another?
where the plow had touched, clear to, would say that was probably about a 3+ foot in height. But as we moved into the snow itself, getting closer to the curb,
Is this better?
I was in level with the rest of the area, what was on the front lawn, which was on the neighbor's lawn. So probably maybe 18 inches of snow.
So you can see the closed captions.
And sir, as far as this search was concerned, about how long a period of time was it that you were on scene as far as searching and how long the process was done?
After Lieutenant Tully showed up, kind of informed us where we were going to search, we moved Trooper Boussolet's vehicle at 5:20, and that's when the rest of the team started to show up, right around 5:21, 5:24. A couple other members with extended response time showed up a little bit after that, but all members were on scene by 5:41. We had already started the process before they had all arrived on scene.
Hey, Lady Autumn Sky, welcome back.
We were complete by 6:15.
Good
We
to
started
see
to
you.
wrap up and clear the area.
As far as the wrapping up, how was that decision arrived at and sort of what led to that decision?
So after we found the sneaker and a couple additional pieces of taillight, we moved south for, I'd say, over 5 feet, maybe closer to 8 to 10 feet without finding any other pieces of evidence. So Lieutenant Tully and I had a conversation. He was very satisfied that we had found everything we were going to locate at that time. And
We
decided
found
to suspend
everything
the
that we were
search.
going to locate? What the hell does that even mean?
What was
We found everything that we were going to
the
locate.
conditions and everything that it-
What is that phrase?
What was sort of your thought process in relation to any sort of situation, search that's clear?
I told Lieutenant Tully, we'll do a debrief at the end. We'll go over probability of detection, how I feel, whether we would have found everything that was there. I told him that there was a good chance we did not find everything. I said if he wanted us to come back in the daylight, which give us better lighting to search, or after a couple of days, the weather was supposed to warm up. If you wanted us to come back after there was some snow melt, just to reach out to me, and we would come back.
And as far as suspending the search at that point, was that something that was your decision independent of Lieutenant Tully?
No, that was in consultation with Lieutenant Tully.
You mentioned.
Who talks like that?
Buchanan and Crocker, or you received information that they were following a vehicle to the.
We found everything that we were going to locate.
Correct, sir.
At any point in time that you were on scene, did you know either Sergeant Buchanan or Trooper Crocker?
Yes, I know both of them, sir.
And at any point in time that you were on scene, did you see either Sergeant Buchanan or Trooper Proctor in the area of critical care during the entire time you were there?
No, they were not on scene.
So the other sort of troopers that you had mentioned around, they were not.
They were not there, no, sir.
Now, as far as the securing of evidence, how was that done? Generally speaking, in relation to searches that your unit conducts, and how was it done in this specific?
So we don't recover evidence. We'll stop and halt our search. Sometimes we've been waiting for crime scene to show up for 2 hours before we've continued to search. So once we found the first piece of taillight, again, I conferred with Lieutenant Tully, asked him if he was documenting it and recovering everything. He stated he was. Once we felt comfortable that he had done that properly, we then continued the search.
So once you get sort of.
Oh my God, will you stop tapping?
What you may be looking for from Lieutenant Tully, is Lieutenant Tully directing your search efforts in any way, shape, or form?
He is not, no.
This is so annoying.
And is that typical as far as how searches will be conducted?
Correct, yes. Yeah, they let me run the search the way I deem best.
How do you guys not hear that?
In addition to photographs, what if anything else was done to document this?
We had one of our members use a handheld GPS, which we use a Garmin 64ST, and he marked each item we found,
You guys hear it now? Okay.
which we then can upload later to a map, which we did later that evening.
If you could just describe to the jury that process as far as mapping is concerned, or how mobile positioning system or GPS is utilized in creating that.
Correct. So the Garmin GPS we use, it connects to 4 different satellites to give you a best range of your location. There obviously is some range error involved with GPSs, but he was able to stamp 3 of the items, or 3 pieces of the tail light. But as he was marking those items on his GPS, because they were in such close proximity, they were almost marking directly on top of each other. So he only marked 3 of them because it was just going to clutter the map as we continued if he were to mark all the pieces we located.
So with respect to the 3 pieces of taillight that were marked on the diagram, excuse me, were those the larger pieces, smaller pieces, or something?
They were the larger pieces, sir.
Yeah, go to the shop.
Yes.
Wow, he has no idea how frustrating and annoying that tapping sound is. Just trying to see if it's maybe me. No, it's not me. No, the tapping was never there before, and the court reporter doesn't tap. No. The court reporter has been there for 8 weeks now, and she never tapped.
Sir, I'm showing you a series of 24 photographs. Actually. Briefly, I'm going to ask you in a moment if you recognize.
I think it's the witness tapping his foot. Yeah. Everything is amplified because we're in a courtroom and you're on video.
Do you
Yes, sir.
recognize what's in those photographs, sir?
Yes, sir. It's the area we searched and some of the evidence that we recovered.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce in a minute as the next exhibits.
Any objection, Mr. Yannetti?
There's no objection, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All being marked, may we approach quickly?
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, she needs to have her attention on the marking, I'm sorry.
have exhibit 111 through 134.
Jurors, it's very important that we keep our record straight. It will be important for you during the deliberations that we do this. Sometimes it takes a while. We're fortunate we've got such a great court reporter here to take care of this for us, but sometimes it takes a while. I caution counsel that maybe you can all work together so that we don't do this, take up any extra time. All right, do you need those photos back, Mr. Lally?
And maybe your thoughts on that, Ron?
All right.
I also really don't like the fact how whenever it is like defense counsel's fault, she's like frustrated and flustered. Like, can you guys get your crap together? And whenever it's like the prosecution, it's like, well, I hope you all can work on it better. And I hope you all can like get along and kumbaya. And I'm like, golly. Brooklyn Janet says, do you think the McCabe's and the Alberts are trying to cover up that John O'Keefe was killed in the Alberts' house? Yes. Perhaps a fight starting got out of hand. Correct. Or did they intentionally kill him? I don't think so. I don't think it was intentional. I think it was an accident. If so, why? The blunt force trauma to the head, the fact that they all seem suspicious in the way that they're acting is completely suspicious. The fact that they're all making sure to get out that John O'Keefe never went into the house, except for Allie McCabe, who slipped up and said when he went into the house. Why did they request for state police take so long? That's a good question. Exactly. Larry, can you move close? Okay, I did that. Thank you so much. Adventurous Word says if he looks like this now, he's going to be in need of care after
Yes.
Alan. Well, Yannetti's taking this one. Random 2023, thank you for joining on as a member.
Can I approach the witness, Ron?
Yes.
Yannetti's cross, you going down, bucko. Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Lieutenant O'Hara. I guess go if you could. You didn't know that. Lieutenant O'Hara, what you have up on the screen before you, is that what you have as exhibit 134? I'm sorry, 111.
Hold on, might be backwards here. Yes, 111, sir.
And if you could describe to the jury, and if you, using that laser pointer, what if anything is significant to be
This is the flagpole in the front of the house. As you move south, this appears to be one of the pieces of taillight that we recovered.
And sir, Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom back out a little.
That looks so planted.
Now,
How can,
when-
logistically, how can a piece of taillight fly? Wait a second.
Whether doing while you were doing.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
I'm going to mute this. I just came up with a brilliant idea. Physics, folks. Physics. John O'Keefe's body was found on the lawn. The pieces of taillight were found on the lawn, right? If a car is moving backwards, striking a person, the doesn't fly to the side, to the left. The body can't fly to the left. The body will fly backwards and land in the street. The taillight pieces will fly and land in the street.
Okay.
That is on the lawn, folks.
Yes, it is.
That's the lawn.
Sort of a different perspective of the same area that you were talking about in the last photograph, is that correct?
Correct.
I know he wasn't, Tim McSats. I know this. This is what I'm saying. It makes no sense.
Again, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as 113?
Yes, it is.
And again, sort of a closer perspective to the piece of taillight that you were referring to, is that correct?
Correct.
I can have the next photograph.
Okay, you really have to speak up.
Thank you, Judge. Finally, you're
Again, Lieutenant, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you?
Yes, it is.
Again, a closer up image of that same piece of tail light as it was observed when you covered it.
Correct. And you can see right here to the left of the taillight, that is the molding of a shovel. So this piece of taillight was picked up by one of the team members' shovels. And as they overturned it, you can see the taillight came up as they were searching through the area. And this is kind of the markings of the shovel itself.
And the next photograph.
I didn't get that.
So we're going to have to turn the air conditioning off for this. We can't hear you at all.
The issue is I'm trying to move away from the podium.
I understand. So we need to turn the air conditioning off so that we can hear you. Yes, please.
And again, Lieutenant, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as the next?
Yes, it is.
If you could describe to the jury what we're looking at in this.
You can see the piece of taillight that we recovered. And again, this is kind of the overturned snow from the shovel. And again, seeing the markings from the shovel from where it was overturned.
he doesn't believe his own testimony. This guy.
This particular piece, is this one of the larger or is this one of the smaller pieces that you were describing earlier?
This is one of the larger pieces, sir.
And as far as length, size of it, if you know, how much would you estimate it? How big it was?
It gets a couple of inches, but well, I didn't measure it, sir.
Oh, you would know what a couple of inches is like, wouldn't you, buddy?
And Lieutenant, if you could describe to the jury sort of what is depicted or what, if anything, is significant to observe in this photo.
So this is the CERT members working through the area again, working on as a line through the grid formation. One of the things we stress is your critical separation, making sure you're close enough to each other that you won't miss a piece of evidence. If you're too far apart, you will miss that. A lot of times before searches, we will take an item of similar
Is my mic
similar
better now?
size item that we're looking for, and we'll space out. Because this was such a condensed search area, we just had the team members stand almost shoulder to shoulder as they searched through the area.
And the next photograph is film. And again, sir, if you could describe to the jury sort of what we're looking at or what, if anything, of significance you observe in this.
Maybe a little difficult to see from a distance, but right here, this is the sneaker that we recovered.
And as far as the airing and the curving that you indicated that the sneaker was recovered in relation to, where is that?
It's flush up against the curb.
Again, I'm sorry, using the laser.
Oh, I apologize, sir. Right here, this would be the curbing right here.
And the next photograph is going. Is there similar, as far as this photograph is concerned, what, if anything, do you observe in that photograph? What was
It's a closer photo of the sneaker. Sneaker is in the bottom right down here.
the next photograph? Again, what, if anything, are we looking at in this photograph, sir?
Again, you're looking at the sneaker. This is just a closer zoomed in photo. And this would be the curbing right here.
And the sneaker as it's portrayed in this particular photograph, is that as it was when it was recovered?
Yes, sir.
The next photograph is going. The other side of that sneaker, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And is that fixed sort of its relation to the curve that you were describing earlier in your testimony?
Yes, sir. You can see the curbing right here.
The next photograph. Now, as far as the sneaker was concerned, when it was recovered, where was the snow in relation to? Was it on, around, in? Where was the snow in relation to?
The sneaker was completely buried. It wasn't until we started digging through the snow that we found the sneaker.
The next photograph.
Digging in the snow to find the sneaker.
Yeah, this is how it was discovered, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Or how it appeared
Yes, sir.
Next photograph. Next photograph. And sir, in this photograph, if you could, using the laser pointer, draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observed.
This is Exhibit 125. It's the photo I have in front of me. This might be difficult for them to see, but this is a clear piece of the taillight right here.
And the next photograph. And again, sir, what is depicted in this exhibit 1.6?
See a little closer zoomed in version of the clear piece of taillight that was recovered.
As far as what the area of snow surrounding, does that sort of depict the depth at which that piece of clear plastic taillight was discovered?
Correct, sir.
The next photograph, 127. What, if anything, we're looking at in this one?
A different angle of the piece of clear taillight that was recovered.
The next photograph is exhibit 128. Sir, if you could describe to the jury what is depicted in exhibit 128.
It's difficult to see, but there's a piece of clear taillight right here. I can see with the photo in front of me, but I'm not sure if the jurors can see it from that distance, but there is a clear piece of taillight in this location.
Next photograph, 129.
It is a complete crock, folks. I agree.
Again, if you could demonstrate to the jury what, if anything, of significance you observed.
Again, there's a piece of clear taillight right in this location.
Different piece of taillight than the one you were referring to previously in the prior exhibits.
Yes, sir.
Next photograph, 130. What, if anything, what are we looking at in this?
Again, there's a piece of clear taillight. Again, might be difficult from the distance for the jurors, but it's in this location here.
Next photograph, 131. What, if anything, is depicted in exhibit 130?
What, if
There's a
anything, that
larger piece of red taillight located on the ground in this location.
dumbest freaking phrase of all time?
And the next exhibit 132.
What, if anything? How about you shut up?
It's a closer photo of the same piece of taillight right here located on the ground.
The next exhibit 133. Now, what, if anything, is depicted in 130?
There's a small piece of taillight, I believe, in this location right here.
And lastly, exhibit 134.
It's a small piece of taillight right on the ground right here in this location.
John, may I approach?
Yes.
No, you may not.
Take those wonderful away and you can just take a look at those and look up when you're finished.
Yes, that's sir.
Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do, sir.
What do you recognize those?
This is the mapping system we use to map evidence we recover.
Are those diagrams created pursuant to that mapping system?
Yes, they are.
What's contained in those diagrams, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of where items were recovered in relation to various markers on scene at 34 Fairview on January 29th in the afternoon?
Yeah, the marks showing on the map, they're a little offset, but that falls in the range of error with the handheld GPSs.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll move to seek to introduce.
No objection to the maps.
All right, thank you.
it's 135 and 136.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish those to, one in each succession to the jury?
Yes.
Now, Lieutenant O'Hara, what you have before you is the first diagram, 135, is that what's up on the screen?
Yes, it is, sir.
And you mentioned something earlier in your testimony just now in regard to sort of items being found in close proximity, creating some overlay with the GPS system, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And you mentioned range of error, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Can you describe what the range of error is and how that impacts sort of how it's depicted in this particular diagram?
So for GPS's typical range of error on a clear day is up to 16 feet. Obviously, we didn't have a clear day. We had atmospheric conditions, cloudy, snowy conditions. GPSs can be affected for their range accuracy by a few different things. One is the satellite geometry. As I said before, the GPSs connect to 4 different satellites. You also could have signal blockage. Blockage could occur from trees, buildings, bridges. Then you have atmospheric conditions, like I mentioned, and then you have the receiver end, any issues with your receiver end, which is actually the handheld GPS. Those would be the four main issues and why you may have a little offset on your GPS readings. But again, typically under clear sky conditions would be up to 16 feet.
And so using the laser pointer, if you could direct the jury's attention to what, if any, sort of significant markers or what has been marked on this particular diagram.
I've listed as the command post, which is where my vehicle was parked. We have the address, which is the house, 34 Fairview. Then as you move further south, you'll see the first red plastic that we recovered, which again was a larger piece of red plastic.
Hey, Jill, thank you for being a member
Kind of
for a
stamped
month.
on top of each other, but you'll see
And
the
Time
sneaker,
Lord, thank you
you'll
for
see
your
the second
super
red
chat.
piece of plastic, and you'll see the fire hydrant all marked. on
Broderick
the map.
Langler says, morning, brother, last day, and I'm out of timeout. Yay, never knew inbred was a no word. We're clowning and correcting frauditors. Crazy world. Yep. Thanks, brother.
Again, so what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you? Is it 136?
Yes, it is.
And again, if you could describe to the jury sort of what we're looking at in this diagram or what, if anything, is different between 136 and 135.
We just changed the layering on the map just to make it a little easier to read. So we removed the taillight pieces, and now we just have the sneaker and the fire hydrant listed on the map here.
And that area, as far as you were talking, sort of the concentration of the search was in the area of the flagpole and the fire hydrant, is that correct?
Correct, sir. Again, we started closer to almost directly across from the front door. The evidence recovery all happened between the flagpole and the fire hydrant.
And if you could, or if it's possible on this diagram that you have up on the screen, could you, using a laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to sort of where the search began and where the items of evidence were located?
Search would have begun right in this area. And as we moved south, we started finding pieces of evidence right around here.
And then the area that you went, about 5 or somewhere between 5 to 10 feet, is that your testimony beyond when you started to not find any more items of evidentiary value, is that correct?
Correct. We had gone past the fire hydrant, hadn't found any other pieces of evidence for, it's probably closer to 8 to 10 feet, and that's when we suspended the search.
And so just using that laser pointer, if you could direct the jury's attention to that 8 to 10 feet, in which direction was it from the item?
Heading south towards Chapman Street. So down in this location would be where we stopped.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, may I approach this to retreat?
Yes.
Now, sir, at any point in time that you were on scene, were you able to look at or see any sort of photographs or any images of the damage to the taillight?
No, I was not.
So fair to say that at the time that you're conducting your search on that particular afternoon, you weren't aware of how much taillight could be there or how much you might be looking for, correct?
Correct. We did not know how much damage there was.
Now, so you talked a little bit about, well, let me ask you this. As far as from your training and experience in relation to conducting these types of searches, are you familiar with a term known as POD?
Correct. So there'll be probability of detection.
And I believe you've referenced earlier in your testimony some variables that go into that terminology. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you describe to the jury sort of what some of those variables are and how it related to this particular search?
So probability of detection, it winds up turning into a mathematical formula to make it simpler, give us more of a baseline objective on how well we did search in the area. Covers 10 different categories. We'll rate those categories 1 through 10 on how we feel we did and kind of come up with a score to give just a baseline on what we think percentage-wise we would have found the objects we're looking for. Those categories would include the terrain, as number 1, hazards would be 2, lighting would be 3, weather would be 4, vegetation would be 5, which in this case would have been some of the grass we encountered as we got on the front lawn. As you continue on would be your spacing, which is again is how the team members are separated as we're searching through the area, the tactics you're using, the area size, then the team composition, and then the last one is instinct and variables. And really the last two, I think, is what works best for us. What stands out most about our team is your team composition and the instincts, just for the experience we have in searching.
And so was it those variables that sort of led to the conclusion in conjunction yourself and Lieutenant Tully as far as to cease searching at that particular point after you had gone 8 to 10 feet south of the evidentiary items without locating any other evidentiary items?
Correct, sir.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness. Thank you, sir.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, sir.
Did he just thank him for the questions? This guy is a nervous wreck.
Sir.
Sir, so you will agree with me that it was Lieutenant Brian Tully who first called you at 2:32 p.m. to ask that your team come out for an evidence search?
That's correct, sir.
And you knew at that time that Lieutenant Tully was he was in charge of the Norfolk County State Police Detectives Unit, correct?
Correct, sir.
Attached to the Norfolk County DA's office, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you also knew Trooper Michael Proctor at that time?
I knew who he is, yes, sir.
And you knew that Trooper Michael Proctor was in the same unit as Lieutenant Tully, correct?
I don't know if I knew he was assigned to that office. I'm not sure where he was assigned, sir.
You've since found out that he is.
Correct, sir.
Now, you told Lieutenant Tully during that phone call at 2:32 p.m. that you would make your team available that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
But at that point in time, Lieutenant Tully specifically held you up, right? Because he didn't have authorization yet?
Objection.
Is that true?
It's not.
Okay. He told you that he did not have the green light, correct?
He had not requested official response from sir at that time.
Okay. So you were not authorized to respond at that time, correct?
No, neither one of us are allowed to dispatch my team. We have to send up formal requests to get authorization to respond.
All right. Now, by 2:32 p.m. on January 29th, when you first spoke to Lieutenant Tully, snow had been falling consistently in Canton since the early hours, correct? The early morning hours?
I would assume so, yes, sir. It wasn't my house.
I'm sorry?
It wasn't my house, so I would assuem so, yes, sir.
But you lived in Massachusetts at that
Correct,
time, right?
yes, I did, sir.
And you weren't hours away when you were contacted by Lieutenant Tully,
I
correct?
was not, no.
All right. Now, you were aware that John O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's lawn at 6:03 that morning?
I believe when I spoke to Lieutenant Tully, he told me around 6:30.
Okay. Well, let's go with 6:30 then. So when you received the call from Lieutenant Tully, snow would have been accumulated from 6:30 a.m. approximately to approximately 2:30 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And so snow had been accumulating at that point when you first got the call for about 8 hours after the body was found, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, before you conduct a search, is it important for you to know in general terms the working theory of the police and the investigators in terms of what had happened at the scene?
It's not. I want as detailed information on what we're looking for. As far as the investigation's concerned, that's not interesting to me. I'm not interested in those exact specifics. I just want to know where you would like us to search and what you need us to find.
Right, but in order to know what you are seeking to find, you'd need to learn from the investigators what they believed happened that would leave that evidence, correct?
Correct, sir. He told us we were looking for pieces of taillight from a vehicle.
All right. You'd also want to know prior to getting to the scene who had access to the scene before you got there, would you not?
I did not need to know that information, no, sir. And I did not ask that.
All right. Is it important to maintain the integrity of a crime scene before it's searched or processed?
Sometimes, but a lot of times when we're involved in searches, we might not be out for days later. If search efforts have been exhausted and they don't think any evidence can be recovered, we will go out to scenes that have been left unsecured for days on end.
Sure. No, I understand that, but that wasn't my question. My question was, is it important to maintain the integrity of a crime scene before it's searched or processed?
No, you can leave it unattended if you don't believe it'll be disturbed or anything.
Oh, no, you can't. No, you can't.
Crime scene unattended prior to searching it?
No, I think they would have searched it before we arrived. Yes, sir.
Again,
Not the
I'm going
question,
to
buddy.
ask if you would, please just
Oh,
respond to my
what
question.
my preference would be, sir, yes, I'd prefer that it was secured.
Okay, that wasn't very difficult.
Apologize. for the
That
objection.
wasn't very
So-
difficult, was it?
No comments, Mr. Yannetti.
That was not a
At the
comment. That was a
time that
question.
Lieutenant Tully first called you.
Fuck
were
you, Judge.
Aware that
Let
no
him do
one
his
from law
job. He's doing
enforcement
great.
Was controlling that crime scene.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I was not aware of that, no, sir.
Were you aware at that time that no one had been controlling it for about 6 or 7 hours before you were called?
I was not aware of that, sir.
Were you aware that the scene had been abandoned by the police and investigators at about 7:50 in the morning?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I was not aware of that, sir.
Were you aware that the scene was left open to the public for hours before you were asked to search?
I was not aware of that.
All right, in any case, when you got there, there was only one trooper on scene, and that was a trooper from your unit,
Correct, sir.
Beausoleil.
Correct.
Nobody else was guarding the crime scene at that point, correct?
There was not.
In fact, at that point, did you know where specifically on the property you were going to be searching?
I did not.
No.
And in your experience, is it proper procedure in an investigation that requires a search for law enforcement to give up control of the area that will be searched?
It's not unusual for us to respond to scenes like that, sir.
It happens, but is it proper procedure?
Proper procedure.
Give up control of a area to be searched prior to the search?
If they don't think anything will be recovered in the meantime, sir, it's something we encounter all the time on our searches.
Right? So in this case, is it your testimony then that the investigators didn't think that anything would be recovered?
Objection.
Sustain the
Oh.
All right, well, you recorded that there was a second alert regarding this case at 2:53 p.m., correct?
That was the initial alert, sir.
Well, maybe we're getting into semantics here, but you were first notified at 2:32 p.m. by Lieutenant Tully, correct?
That's him calling me. The 253 alert is sent out to my full team.
Okay. That 2:53 alert is the second time that you're receiving information about this case, right? The first being 2:32 from Lieutenant Tully.
No, that's not new information. That's me taking the information I received from Lieutenant Tully and sending it out to the rest of my team because they were not aware of the circumstances yet.
So you were the one to send out that second alert or that alert?
West team supervisor, because I was going to start clearing my driveway. So I reached out to a West team supervisor. He sent out that alert.
And who was that?
That was then Sergeant, now Lieutenant Simpson.
And the alert that Sergeant Simpson sent out was an instruction for members of your team to begin clearing off their cruisers and their driveways to get ready to go, correct?
That was an availability of alert to see who would be available to respond.
And that they should begin clearing off their cruisers and driveways, correct?
Yes, so they would be able to respond.
But your team was still not activated at that point, correct?
Correct.
In fact, Sergeant Simpson explicitly wrote in that alert, quote, "We do not have the green light yet," end quote, correct?
Correct, sir.
Sergeant Simpson at 2:53 p.m. in that alert actually typed it in twice that your team did not have the green light, correct?
Correct. It's a voice generator response. It will normally duplicate the instructions. So as they listen to it, if they miss it the first time through, they can hopefully hear it clearly the second time through.
Okay. And it was very clear that you didn't have the green light from that alert, correct?
Correct, sir. We weren't authorized to respond yet.
Okay. Now, you stated that you were in Massachusetts at the time you were first contacted, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how far were you from Canton?
Normally would be about a 20-minute ride.
All right. With the blizzard conditions, however, it took you longer than that?
43 minutes, sir.
Now, you're familiar with the CERT Administrative Journal extract?
The daily journal, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That recorded, and when I say that, I mean, you called it the Daily Journal?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll call it the Daily Journal. That Daily Journal recorded the initial contact that you had with Lieutenant Tully at 2:32 p.m., correct?
Yes, that was entered into the daily journal.
And then the second entry was the 2:53 p.m. alert that was sent out by Sergeant Simpson, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's in the daily journal or not, but that would be the alert, sir.
May I approach the witness, please?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to hand the witness this document and leave it there. I have an extra copy. I have no problem with him referring to it. Once you've had a chance to review that, Lieutenant, if you look up at me when you're done.
All set, sir.
So you'd agree with me that the 2:32 p.m. phone call with Lieutenant Tully is in the Daily Journal, correct?
Yes, it is.
And the 2:53 p.m. alert by Sergeant Simpson is also in the journal, correct?
Yes, it is.
Both of those have a timestamp, do they not?
They do, sir.
What is the next entry on that journal?
It says, CERT activated en route to Canton.
Now, there is no time entry next to that. I'm sorry, no time is entered next to that entry, correct?
There is not, no.
The previous alert said only to clear the vehicles and driveways, essentially, right? To check on availability.
Correct, sir.
So the time that your team is alerted was entered in the journal, but there is no time entered in this journal as to when you were dispatched, correct?
Correct, sir.
But you have a memory of after that 2:53 p.m. alert sent out by Sergeant Simpson that Lieutenant Tully called you back about an hour later?
It's not a memory, sir. Our alert for the team to respond is timestamped at 3:48 p.m.
Okay, and that was Sergeant Simpson that recorded that, correct?
Correct, sir.
But that's not in the Daily Journal, correct?
No, that's in the Health and Homeland Alert Network, which records all our alerts that get sent out. And that was timestamped at 3:48.
3:48, okay. Now, other than authorization that would have been obtained after the 2:53 p.m. alert, did you ever ascertain what else changed on the part of the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit that allowed you now to have the green light?
Once I was done cleaning my driveway off, which took a significant amount of time, I spoke to my captain. He said we were approved through our chain of command. And that's when either I contacted Lieutenant Tully or he called me. He said he was approved through his chain of command to include the deputy superintendent who was authorizing a response.
Okay,
So there's several layers of the chain of command that have to approve a response for numerous reasons. Staffing reasons, they know I'm going to be pulling, again, I said some of my team members aren't full-time members. Some of them I have to pull off their assignments. So if they're on patrol, I'll now be shorting a barracks. They take that into consideration, overtime consideration, safety consideration of now additional members driving through the whether to respond. So that all gets discussed at levels above us.
That answer applied to strictly issues regarding authorization on both ends, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. You recall my question, which was, other than authorization, did you learn what, if anything, had changed in that time period from 2:53 p.m. to 3:48 p.m. on the part of the Norfolk State Police Detectives Unit?
No, sir. We just talked about the authorization process.
Sometime shortly before 4 o'clock, you're talking about 3:48 being the alert authorizing you to depart. Sometime before 4, Sergeant Simpson informed your team to start heading to Canton and to report to you, correct?
Correct, sir.
That meant that team members should basically stop what they're doing, the ones who are going to be going, get their gear ready, suit up, get in a car, and start driving to Canton to meet up with you, correct?
Correct, sir.
And we've already discussed that on this particular day with blizzard conditions and the roads as they existed, that would obviously take more time than it would on a clear sunny day, correct?
Correct, sir.
And I believe your estimation is maybe about a 20-minute drive in good weather with good roads versus the 43 minutes it actually took you to get there, correct?
Correct.
Now, the 7 members of your team who did show up were Bearden, Beausoleil, Carrier, Louise, O'Brien, you, and Viscardi, correct?
Correct, sir.
You all arrived at about the same time, sir?
No, we had a pretty significant difference between arrival times.
Okay. Is there something called a personnel status report that records arrival times, sir?
No, it doesn't record arrival times. We just enter who's responding. We use our geotab, which is our vehicle locator, to determine arrival times.
Is it your testimony? Let's get back to the podium. Is it your testimony that the personnel status report does not record the date and time that somebody arrived on scene?
No, that's all manually entered, sir.
Do you deny that the personnel status report in this case recorded the date and time of each of those officers that I just mentioned who came on scene?
It has who arrived on scene, yes, sir.
But it doesn't just say who arrived on scene. The personnel status report says when they arrived on scene, correct?
Yeah, it's whenever they would have been entered into the system. But that doesn't mean they were officially on scene yet,
All
sir.
right, but again, that's not what the document says, right? It doesn't say we're entering this into the system because they're arriving. The document says on scene and it gives a date and time, does it not?
Yes, it does, sir.
All right. Now, your testimony is, oh, and by the way, the personnel status report, you'd agree with me, has everybody except for you and Beausoleil showing up at 5 p.m. on January 29th of 2022, does it not?
Yes, it does, sir.
And it has you and Beausoleil showing up 5 minutes before that at 4:55 p.m. on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
But it's your testimony that when you got there, it was just you and Beausoleil, correct?
Correct, sir.
Which actually would be consistent with the personnel status report, right?
Yes, sir.
Because that has you two showing up first as well, right?
Yes, sir.
And then your testimony is that other members didn't show up until between 5:20 and 5:24 p.m.?
Trooper Bearden arrived at 5:21. Sergeant Luis and Sergeant O'Brien arrived at 5:24. Trooper Viscardi showed up at 5:34. Sergeant Carrier showed up at 5:41.
Okay, and so the last member of your team, which is, again, Carrier,
Carrier, correct, sir, 5:41.
he showed up at 5:41, and now your team was all there, correct?
Yes, sir.
So is it your testimony that you did not meet up as a team somewhere and head to 34 Fairview? You all arrived individually.
That's correct, sir.
Did every single trooper who arrived have their own cruiser?
Yes, they did, sir.
All right. Now, you would agree with me that when Lieutenant Tully first contacted you at 2:32 p.m., it was still daytime, correct?
Yes, it was.
So it was light out, correct?
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with me that at around 5 o'clock on this late January day in Massachusetts, it was dark out by the time you got there, correct?
Yes, it was.
So when you finally arrived on scene, after getting your team getting the green light, it was dark for the start of your search, correct?
Yes, it was.
When you got there, you set up a command post.
Well, you could call my cruiser command post, sure, sir.
Well, I didn't use the term command post, sir, did I?
You did
Who
not.
used it first?
We marked my cruiser as a command post on the map, sir.
Okay, all right. And a command post is a base of operations at the scene, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you parked your cruiser basically in front of the driveway at 34 Fairview to serve as the command post?
Yes, right side of the driveway, yes, sir.
And you were initially facing away from the flagpole when you did that,
Yes, sir.
which would mean that your cruiser was parked technically on the wrong side of the street facing Cedar Crest because you were against 34 Fairview,
Correct, sir.
and then ultimately turned it around?
Well, yes, myself and Trooper Bousselet moved our vehicles.
All right, and you initially parked there in part because you wanted to keep the area where you were searching clear of vehicles, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was where you met at the, we'll call it a command post because you did, your cruiser. That was where you met to discuss the parameters of the search?
When Detective Lieutenant Tully arrived on scene, that's where we spoke.
Okay. And you would agree with me that it was Lieutenant Tully from the Norfolk State Police Detectives Unit who told you where to look and what to look for, correct?
Correct. He told us the area he thought would be the best probability to find what we were looking for.
In addition to
The
your
best
team,
probability to find
the
what we're
seven of
looking
you,
for
you noted that there were 5 other officers on scene at
seems
various
coached.
times, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was about 5, sir.
They were all in uniform?
They were not.
Some were in plain clothes?
They were.
And you didn't know who those 5 other officers were, correct?
I only recognized 2 of them, sir.
And so the other 3, you didn't know if they were state police or Canton police?
Correct, sir.
At that point, were you made aware that the Canton police had been conflicted out of this investigation?
I had not, no, sir.
All right. Now, Lieutenant Tully directed you to an area where he said that John O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
He directed us to where he believed the vehicle involved had been parked and to where the victim's body was recovered.
All right. So again, in answer to my question, he did direct you to an area where he believed the victim's body was found, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he told you that he believed that the victim officer was hit and dragged by a motor vehicle, correct?
Yeah, I believe he might have said possibly dragged.
All right. But in terms of your paperwork on the case, there's something called a final mission report, correct?
Yes, there is, sir.
And what is the final mission report?
That's just a brief summary of the actions conducted by CERT during our assignment.
And with regard to, just going back for a second, with regard to those 5 officers, you mentioned that you recognized 2 of the 5 officers that were in plainclothes at the scene.
Correct, sir.
And what departments were they from?
The only 2 I recognized were from the state police.
Okay. Now, getting back to the final mission report, you called it a brief summary of what you had done with regard to the search, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just because it's brief doesn't mean that it should be inaccurate, correct?
Correct, sir.
It's important with regard to anything that you submit on this case that you be as accurate as possible, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you try to be, correct?
Do our best, sir.
And there is an entry, well, there are 6 different categories on, or I should say 7 different categories on the final mission report. The first being the mission name, which you entered as the Canton Evidence Search, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate. The evidence search occurred, and it occurred in Canton, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also put the date and time of the first call, and you entered that as January 29th of 2022 at 2:32 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate because you've testified that's when Lieutenant Tully contacted you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's a entry or a question or a box that says general terrain. And you entered that as neighborhood, snow-covered street, and front lawn, correct?
Correct, sir.
And that was accurate, right?
Yes, sir.
And in terms of incident type, you entered evidence search, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then there's a final mission report that talks about your mission and starts with, 7 CERT members, and that's the CERT team, right?
Yes, sir.
7 CERT members responded to the scene, and it talks about, the snow in the area where the victim's body was found, the plows hadn't cleared the street, et cetera, et cetera. That paragraph is accurate as well, correct?
Yes, it is, sir.
And then there's a final mission report by, and it gives your name, Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, and it has your accurate badge number, which is 3042, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, everything that we've just discussed in terms of what you put in your final mission report was entered accurately, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the final category is general description of mission. And would you agree with me that you entered the off-duty officer was hit and dragged by a vehicle at approximately 12:30 a.m.?
I don't remember exactly how it's worded, sir. If I could.
May I approach you on?
Yes.
It's been a recurring theme. Do you need
I do
reading
not.
glasses? You
I do
don't.
not,
Okay.
sir.
All right, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. All set, sir. Thank you.
I may approach you.
Yes.
You are all set, sir.
Lieutenant, having read that portion of the final mission report, is your memory refreshed?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right, and did you enter in there the off-duty officer?
That's
was
right,
hit
Jay
and
Water.
Dragged by a vehicle at approximately 12:30 a.m.
Yes, it is. I did, sir.
All right. Now, with regard to the area that, or I should say, Lieutenant Tully's direction to you to search the area where the victim's body was found, Lieutenant Tully never informed you that he was actually present and saw the victim's body in that spot, did he?
Oh,
He did not, no, sir.
Did you mark the place where John O'Keefe's body was found with GPS coordinates?
We did not. He wasn't no longer on scene, sir. So I think that would have been not 100% accurate.
Okay.
what?
You also mentioned that Lieutenant Tully directed you to the area where the SUV had been parked, correct?
To where the vehicle was believed to have been parked, yes, sir.
At that time, did you know it was an SUV or not?
I did not, sir.
All right. But in any case, Lieutenant Tully didn't tell you that he ever saw the vehicle parked in the area to which he directed you, correct?
He did not say that he saw it there, no, sir.
So Lieutenant Tully told you to look for a man's sneaker, correct?
That was one of the items missing, yes, sir.
And he told you to look for red and clear plastic pieces of taillight, correct?
He just said taillight, didn't say red clear, but taillight pieces.
Uh-huh.
Did Lieutenant Tully give you approval not just to search outside the house, but also inside the house?
No, we never discussed searching inside the house, sir.
Oh,
And you had mentioned during your testimony that you confirmed that the
they never searched.
homeowner was there, right? Because he came
Inside
out of
the
the house at
house.
one point?
I don't know if it was the homeowner, but an adult male exited the house while we were there, sir.
Sure. And he appeared to live at that home, correct? Let me just have a moment. All right. Now, with regard to the area that you were searching, you would agree with me that Lieutenant Tully was the one who directed you where to search and what to search for, correct?
He gave us the best idea for the search area, yes, sir.
All right. And it was based on his direction that you created a grid and began your search.
He told us where he believed the vehicle was parked and where the victim's body was found, and I decided how far of a distance we would search.
Okay. So that's another way of saying it was based on his direction that you created a grid and began your search, correct?
Yeah, I based it off of the information he provided, yes, sir.
So the answer is yes.
I guess so, sir.
This was not the first time that you and your team have done a search in the snow, correct?
Not for evidence. We had never done a search like this before, just for missing person searches.
I see. But in any case, you've been trained to search winter crime scenes that have snow, correct?
Correct, sir.
There are proper techniques for conducting such searches during or after a snowfall, correct?
Yeah, we have best practices we use.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Yes, we have best practices we use, sir.
Of course. Best practices would include documenting the scene and the area to be searched with photographs and diagrams, correct?
Yes, sir.
It would also include using, gentle methods to remove snow, correct?
Yeah, the best way you can, yes, sir.
That might include, smaller hand tools, brushes, gloved hands.
Only if you would have a real small area.
It would include removing snow layer by layer and then sifting it and documenting evidence again for each layer that's removed.
Yeah, I believe that's how we went through, sir. We went slowly, methodically, and sifting through the snow as we progressed down the area. Correct.
And best practices would mean documenting by photographs along the way the progress of your search, would it not?
That would be up to the detectives or the crime scene unit, sir.
Well, but you were the one who was making those decisions, correct?
Not for documentation purposes. No, that's not our responsibility, sir.
Okay. But you would agree with me that it would be advisable to document your search in that way, would it not?
That would be at the discretion of the detective, sir.
Okay. Well, would it
Discretion.
harm your
Really?
search in any way
Discretion.
to fully document it along the way?
It would not harm it. No, sir.
You want to take your time and work methodically and thoroughly in the search, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you want to collect evidence as it's located and immediately photograph it in place before it's disturbed, correct?
Yeah, as evidence is discovered, it will get photographed in place. Yes, sir.
During your search in this case, your team found a sneaker and pieces of red and clear plastic, correct?
Correct, sir.
The evidence that you found was basically on top of each other, within a few inches of each other, correct?
Within Foot or two, couple feet, yes, sir.
Well, you testified at a prior proceeding in this matter.
Oh, here we go.
Did you not?
I did, sir.
And you were sworn to tell the truth during that prior proceeding as
Here we
well,
go.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Impeachment.
And that testimony was closer in time to the search that you conducted on January 29th than today is, correct?
Yes, it was, sir.
And your memory would have been better then than it is today, correct?
Probably, sir.
You were asked the question, quote, and as far as the red and clear glass you believed consistent with the taillight, was that found in the same area as the sneaker or somewhere else? Do you recall that question?
I believe being asked that question, yes, sir.
And your answer was same area within a few inches, less than a foot, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, you mapped out GPS coordinates for what you found?
One of the team members did, yes, sir.
Your team did.
Yes, sir.
And Lieutenant Tully from the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit was present during the search, correct?
Yes, he was.
And he was the one that was photographing the items that were found?
Yes, he did.
So I'd like to ask you a few questions about your observations about where these items were found in relation to each other. Was there a piece of red plastic located on the roadway left of the flagpole when you look at the house from the street?
Left of the flagpole. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, given your testimony about these items essentially being in the same area, less than a foot away from each other, it could not be true then that from that red piece of plastic that was found in the street, that 3 feet south of that was a black Nike sneaker found under the snow. That couldn't have happened, correct?
Well, I don't know where the distance between the objects as far as the mapping purposes, sir, but as far as how far apart, the first thing we discovered was one red piece of plastic. And then further south, that's when we found the sneaker and additional pieces.
Right, but again, they were all in the same area, less than a foot apart,
The
correct?
same general area, but could have been over a foot, sir. I'd have to measure between the GPS markings.
Okay, well, so is your testimony today that what you testified to in that prior proceeding, where everything was less than a foot apart, that wasn't accurate?
Objection.
That's a legitimate question.
Is that your testimony, sir?
Best recollection that they were within around a foot, but to be 100% accurate, you would have to measure between the two GPS points, which I have not done.
Sure, but if your estimate is you didn't even say a foot, you said less than a foot, correct?
I believe that's what you read, around a foot, yes, sir.
Which is what you testified to, correct?
Correct, sir.
So if it's less than a foot, then by definition, the sneaker couldn't have been found 3 feet south of where that red piece of plastic was, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
You don't know what's accurate.
Where you're saying 3 feet, I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
No, that's what I'm asking you. Is it accurate?
I don't know, sir. I'm not sure the exact distance. I didn't measure the GPS marking, sir.
All right.
I don't know I didn't know where you came up with that number 3 feet, sir.
I'm just asking questions.
Okay.
I'm just asking questions. All right. So with regard to, let's assume for a moment that the sneaker was found 3 feet south of that first red piece of plastic. From your observations, was there a clear piece of plastic that was found a few feet south of that black sneaker?
There was a piece of clear plastic found just past the sneaker.
A few feet south of the sneaker?
I don't know where you're getting that from, sir.
Again, you don't have to worry where my questions are coming
So,
from.
Mr. Yannetti, no comments. Next
Sure.
question.
I'm just asking a factual question. You were there, I was not.
Mr. Yannetti, just ask the
Yes.
question.
was a clear piece of plastic found a few feet south of the black sneaker, which was found 3 feet south of the red piece of plastic.
It
Did
was
that happen?
I don't know the distance, sir. No, not without measuring it, but I wouldn't think it was that far of a distance. They were much closer than that.
Right. I mean, you say you don't know the distance, but you testified to what the distance was in that prior proceeding, did you not?
Objection.
Answer.
Next question, please.
All right.
Wow, she's rescuing him from prior
And
inconsistent
then-
statement. What?
Moving along,
the
we have
fuck?
a red piece of plastic, 3 feet south, black sneaker, a few feet south, clear plastic. Then finally,
Good. Yanetti's not
several
letting him go.
feet south of that clear piece of plastic, was there a second piece of red plastic found? Several feet south.
No, again, I don't agree with your description of the distance, sir.
Okay, all right, so we will agree that, one piece of red plastic, 3 feet south sneaker, a few feet south clear piece of plastic, and then several feet south, more red plastic. That didn't happen, correct?
I don't agree on those distances, no, sir.
No, okay. Now,
He's so
you
flustered.
testified that these items were buried under some snow, correct?
Correct, sir. They were under snow.
Can I have those exhibits, please? Okay, can I display exhibit 113, please?
All right, the jury needs to take a break. Why don't
Oh,
we
sure.
why don't we have this be our morning? recess, folks? We'll take about 15.
All rise for the court, please.
Wow, this judge, I swear to God, she's just finding ways to bend over backwards to rescue this cop. This was a perfect opportunity to have the prior inconsistent statement to show that the cop previously testified to certain words that he used about distances. And instead of allowing Yannetti to go for the gullet, she goes, next question. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. This is absolutely nuts. I don't like her. I don't like her. I don't like her. I don't like her. I've said it before. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it again. I don't like Judge Bev. All right. Oh, here comes my biggest fan. Have you guys seen my OnlyFan? It's so pretty. Why is there the difference? There were captions there for a minute. It's a ceiling Dion. You don't see Chandler? My OnlyFan. Yeah, God, folks, what a day. What a day. I mean, we're literally here for like a couple of hours, barely, and I'm already just ready to defenestrate some cops, folks. I mean, this is absolutely nuts. Let's go through some super chats to distract us. Sibyl, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Thank you for becoming a member. Maybe you can tell me how to pronounce this properly. Glenn Everett, thank you so much for your super chat. And Elaine Bredahotz, what, if anything, when Lally was speaking? Exactly. Does Lally really think anyone is going to believe the stuff that is coming out of his ass? Aussie Wombat 0105. Sorry for adding some more stuff in there, but I'm thinking this is really what you meant. I don't know. At this point, I have no idea what Lally is thinking. Lally doesn't know what Lally is thinking. So how are we supposed to decipher what Lally is thinking? You know what I mean? Susie Thompson, thank you so very much for your super chat, as well as Chris Pack. And Fraudit Wrangler once again says, if he is so legit, why is he shaking so much? Why is he so nervous? Exactly. I don't quite understand his demeanor, his behavior, his demeanor makes absolutely no sense. And by the way, what is with that language? We found everything that we were going to locate. Who talks like that? We found everything that we were going to locate. And also, they need approval to search now? They need approval to search houses? They don't need to secure crime scenes? Securing crime scenes is optional now? Thank you, Elizabeth Barr, for joining on as a member. Welcome to the channel. I don't understand this, folks. This whole thing is a farce. It's so frustrating to have to sit here and just listen to it day in and day out and day in and day out. I can only imagine how frustrated you guys are. I can only imagine how frustrated the jurors are. Think of the poor jurors. Think of the poor jurors who have to sit there and listen to all of this testimony. There was absolutely nothing pointing the finger at Karen other than the BS taillight evidence that was planted later. Yeah, this guy is not holding up very well on cross-examination. I mean, he's doing his best, but he's crumbling. He is crumbling. By the way, I don't know if I told you guys yet. I don't think I have. I applied to be on the alumni council for the Louis D. Brandeis School of Law, my alma mater, of course. I want to be on the alumni council. Apparently, you have to be voted in. You can't just join by the current members. So I don't know. I don't know how much they like me over there, but if not, it's cool. I don't really have a horse in the race, but if they're going to vote me in for membership, I will be happy to join and contribute. I think it would be a lot of fun to give back to the community. I don't know why I haven't done it yet. I just haven't really thought about it. So maybe I'll be on the Louis D. Brandeis Alumni Council come next week or something, next month. I don't know. Wait, what happened? The fundraiser is still at 375. Thanks, Amber Rambo. The fundraiser is still at 375. It hasn't increased since those two. I mean, there were two large donations. People dropped like $220 while I was live. That was awesome. So it's for the children. It's all for the children. It's in yesterday's live. If you missed it, the link is in the description of yesterday's live, not this live. Should probably include it in this one, maybe, but nah, this is Karen Reed stuff. We don't need to talk about that. Right now we're on break. Right now we're on break. And we are waiting for court to resume. It's just morning break. It's not lunch. During lunch, lunch is in a couple hours. Lunch is at 1. And that's when we'll switch streams. After we take a break, but right now we're just doing a quick morning break. Was this jury screened like your video the other day, or are they screened jury, or how they screened Trump's jury in New York? So I don't know how they screened Trump's jury in New York. What I can tell you is I was actually in the courtroom when they were picking the jury. The jury picking was done like very secretly. You could not hear the questions. You could not hear the answers. You could not hear the questions being asked. You could not hear the answers being given. And then they just periodically would pick one and they would select one. Just Joe says, do police need a search warrant for the yard? No, they don't. Of course not. They're just investigating a murder. They don't need a search warrant when they find a body. A body is probable cause of a crime that has been committed. And they can go inside the house. They don't need a search warrant for that either. There's a body on the front lawn, for God's sake. You need a search warrant when you don't know what's inside. When you believe there's evidence of a crime that has been committed because it's literally laying on the front lawn, that's probable cause to go in the house. When did Proctor unofficially get the car again? That's a good question, Luck of the Irish. I don't know. Maybe Chad knows and can help us out. Crazy Old Fart says, I want to see the science behind a polycarbonate lens shattering like that at those temperatures. Ooh. See, now you're getting scientific on me. Now you're getting scientific on me, Chad. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. Suzanne Parrish says, so happy you are back. Really appreciate all your commentary. Well, thank you, Suzanne. I got back from the Bahamas last week on Monday. We barely got in, but we did. And oh my gosh, somebody else just contributed. You guys are incredible. You guys are amazing. Anything for the kids. You guys are so awesome. Wow. Look at this. 485. Thank you, anonymous stranger. You guys are just so cool. We are pretty much halfway to our goal. And it's not until September 7th. Gosh. And you get to watch me rappel from a building for the children. Louisville Slugger Museum. Sign up now to become an edger, so any age can participate. Weight restrictions 100 to 300 pounds. I fit that. Easily set up your personal fundraising page, which we did. Reach the fundraising minimum. So $500 for individuals, which includes a souvenir and an event t-shirt, with the goal being $1,000. $1,000 for fearless leaders, includes a cape for the rappel, a souvenir, and an event t-shirt, with the goal being $2,000. Wait a minute. I'm confused. 500 for individuals, goal being 1,000. So if I get to 1,000 for fearless leaders, what does that mean? How do I change like to a fearless leader so I can get the cape? I want a cape. How do I change to a fearless leader? Includes a cape for the rappel. Whatever. Maybe I can get my own cape. Once the fundraising minimum has been reached, schedule your preferred rappel time. Experience the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rappel off the roof of the Louisville Slugger Museum next to the world's largest baseball bat. Critically Loved was founded by our executive director, Tia Lynn, whose 23-year-old daughter was diagnosed with life-threatening internal bleeding at age 5. It took her years to learn how to manage her daughter's healthcare, not wanting other parents to struggle like she did. In 2015, she started Critically Loved to help families navigate a difficult road. Critically Loved supports families practically with issues relating to school, insurance, and medical bills, emotionally by meeting one-on-one with parents, with professional counseling, and by providing events where families can connect with one another. That's cool. And spiritually, in group settings in churches around the community and via Zoom. Critically Loved also focuses on child abuse prevention and inclusion education, where typical children learn to appreciate differences in their peers with unique abilities and are encouraged to overcome their own challenges. Last year alone, Critically Loved served 1,559 families and provided inclusion education to 2,300 students. Wow. Since most families we serve are already overwhelmed with with time off work to care for their child and medical bills, we never charge for our services. Therefore, we rely 100% on donations and fundraisers to exist. Please consider supporting this event to make an impact in the lives of families with critically and chronically ill children in our community. All right, since I've read all of that, how about I'll just include the link in the description below. I got a little distracted. It's going to be in the video's description. And if you guys don't, whoops, almost knocked my microphone over. If you guys don't see it, it is officially updated. If you guys don't see it, just refresh your page. Come on, foxes for the kids. Let's hit it tonight. Hell yeah, you guys are amazing. Wow. Wow. Look at this. It's already 530 bucks. That is really cool. Good for Tia Lynn. It really sucks what she went through with her daughter, but hey, she's making a good cause. She's created a really good cause. That's awesome. So yeah.
It's almost time to go over the edge for camp quality and critical love.
We'll see you September 7th.
Knock it out of the park and go over the edge.
There's the Louisville Slugger. And that's gonna be me. Look at that. Look how cool that is. You literally get to go over the edge of the building for the children. Isn't that awesome? So cool. So very cool. Thank you to everybody who has contributed thus far. You guys are incredible. All right, where are we with court? Thank you so much, Chris Pack. Is it going to be recorded? You bet your sweet buttocks it will. I'm going to have somebody there to record me. There's no way I'm not recording that. I mean, I think they're going to take photos of me, but I want a video. The witness makes no sense. He said the GPS is not accurate because of the weather conditions. Yeah, exactly. There's so much stuff that he said that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's not congruent with reality. It's not congruent with facts. It's not congruent with what one might anticipate. We couldn't go inside the house because, oh, there's a first responder living there. We don't want to disturb the peace of someone who may have potentially committed a murder. That's one of ours. So frustrating. And plus Judge Bev keeps interrupting his like excellent cross. I just can't stand her sometimes, folks. I'm sorry. Oh my God, you guys are crazy. We're at $5.95 already. Oh, golly. Thank you. Then he stated later that he would have to measure the geotags to know the distance between pieces. This is all for an awesome cause, by the way. Yeah, exactly. He already measured them. He already testified. See, this is what people seem to forget. He already testified, and Yannetti got him on that. He has already previously testified that there was like 3 inches or whatever it was, the distance between the first and the shoe, and then the shoe and the. And now he's trying to be like, I don't know distances. I don't know distances. But you testified to this already. Well, I don't know distances. What? That makes no sense. Holy crap, we're at 705. You guys are wild. Cross-examnesia. Exactly, cross-examnesia. It's cross-examnesia. You guys are just amazing. And it's all for the children. That's the beautiful part about it. And you get to watch me risk my life. It's not that risky. I mean, not that risky. I don't even know how to change. Let me email them real quick to see if I can become the fearless leader or whatever it is. Let's see. I need to search my email over the edge. They're gonna be so happy. Thank you for saying. Oh, I got an email from Tia Lynn. Larry, we're so excited to have you join us. Check this out. I completely forgot I got an email from her. Let me just make sure there's nothing confidential on the screen. No. Okay. All right. Let's share this tab instead. This is the email I got from her. Larry, we're excited to have you join us September 7th for Over the Edge. To help meet your fundraising goal, attached are 2 graphics for you to share. This is from Tia Lynn Scott. Attached are 2 graphics. Her office phone number and her email and website are on here, so nothing confidential, which is all public. Attached are 2 graphics for you to share or hang up in your office. If you would like me to add your photo to make it more personalized, please email a photo you would like to use. Please also let me know how many team members will be rappelling with you. If you have additional people interested, your team is welcome to share the campaign. There's a $500 minimum per person to rappel, with 1,000 person being the goal. Let me know if you have any questions. Looking forward to seeing you at the event. That's awesome.
Thank you. Be seated. Put it back inside.
I'm going to email her.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Nettie, you can go back to the podium.
Lieutenant O'Hara, you testified on direct examination that you collected 6 or 7 pieces of plastic, correct?
I believe that's what we found. Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that it's important to be precise in your investigation?
Yeah, precision.
Yeah, that's why Lieutenant Tully took an evidence log, sir.
That's not the question I asked you, sir.
Testify here today, 2.5 years later. Can you tell the jury whether it was 6 or 7 of the pieces of plastic that you actually found?
I've never seen the evidence log from that night, sir, so I'm not sure exactly how many he recovered. Again, I was partaking in the search, so I'm not sure what the exact number is, sir.
And you would agree with me that you only mapped 3 of them on the map that was introduced here at trial, correct?
Correct.
And again, that was because the pieces were essentially on top of each other, correct?
Correct. As you would mark them on the GPS, they were marking almost directly on top of each other, and we knew that was going to.
And they certainly were not being marked feet away from each other, several feet, correct?
No, sir.
All right. And you are aware that Lieutenant Tully photographed 5 pieces of plastic that day, are you
If
not?
the standard is
I'm
reasonable,
not
doubt I
sure.
think
I've
they
never
made
seen
it.
the photos until
Juries are fickle, but I would
probably about a
vote to
week
let her
ago,
go. Then I'll have to
In any case, you did say to
Thanks, Rick.
the state police detective unit at the end of this search that if they wanted to-
0, Abel. They're not doing it. Absolutely
to
not.
come back out
0%.
during daylight
0.00.
hours, you would, correct?
It's in the negatives.
correct, sir.
So I'd like to direct your attention to 6 specific dates, and then I'll ask you a question. February 3rd, February 4th, February 8th, February 10th, February 11th, and February 18th. Those 6 dates. And my question is, did the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, ever call you on one of those 6 dates to come back to the scene to conduct a further search?
No, he did not.
I have nothing further.
Mm-hmm.
Redirect, Mr. Lally?
Just briefly, Your Honor. So Lieutenant O'Hara, with respect to both yourself and Lieutenant Tully, as far as being dispatched, that decision comes from above both of your heads with respect to each of your units. Is that fair to say?
That's correct, sir.
You were asked some questions about a daily journal. Can you describe for the jury sort of what that is or what kind of information would typically be kept in that?
That would just be our day-to-day activities. We'll give a quick gist of what we're doing each day. Be more general than, doesn't get too thorough.
Now, you had made mention during your testimony of some other documentation that would be more specific. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And what would some of those be and how would that be more specific?
That's a report that gets generated through our mission manager software, so it creates a little bit more detailed response.
And are you familiar with an AVL?
I am, yes, sir.
And what is an AVL?
It's the Geotab GPS on the cruiser's automatic vehicle locator system.
And the vehicle that you were operating that day, was that equipped with an AVL?
Yes, it was, sir.
And is that how you're able to tell the precise time of your arrival on scene,
Correct, sir.
as well as each member of your unit? Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, as far as the items and where they were, again, I just asked from the photographs that were marked as exhibits before, where the items were when they were located by members of your team, they were photographed as they lay. Is that correct?
Correct, sir. As they were discovered, they were photographed.
So regardless of inches versus feet versus whatever distance it was, you didn't measure that. Is that correct?
We did not, no, sir.
But as far as where they were actually discovered or where they were recovered, they were photographed where they were when you found them, correct?
Correct, sir.
Nothing further.
Right. All right, Lieutenant, you are all set, sir.
Thank you. Ron.
You're
Appreciate it.
all set, Lieutenant.
Thank you. Mr. Yannetti, this is your paperwork, I believe. All right, Mr. Lally, your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth call Miss Maureen Hartnett to the stand.
Maureen Hornets? What? Maureen Hartnett? I missed it. Maureen?
You step right up here and just watch your step for me.
Maureen Hartnett. Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab. Yes. More action.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Maureen Hartnett, Hartnett.
All right, Ms. Hartnett, I know I'm going to ask you throughout this to keep your voice up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And Ms. Hartnett, what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist too with the Criminalistics Unit and Crime Scene Response Unit at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
And how long in total have you been with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
In total, approximately 8 years.
And I'm going to ask you some questions, just a little bit about your educational background. Where did you go as far as your undergraduate was concerned?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Bridgewater State University.
And following receipt of that degree, where did you go from there?
I have a Master of Science in Forensic Science from the University of New Haven.
And after you received your master's, where did you go after that?
I was then hired by the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
And when you're initially hired, you mentioned that you're a forensic scientist too now, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So when you're initially hired, or when you were initially hired at the State Crime Lab, what was your position and what did that entail?
Are you referring to back in 2004 or in my current hire?
You're back in 2000.
In 2004, I was originally hired as a temporary employee in the CODIS unit.
And what is it that you did there?
I collected blood samples for the DNA database.
And did you receive any sort of training in regard to that work?
Yes, I was trained on how to properly collect and seal those samples.
And what did training sort of consist of in reference to that?
I demonstrated being able to take those collections and then properly store them and seal them.
Now, your current position, what is your position at the crime lab now?
Currently, I'm a forensic scientist too in the Criminalistics Unit and Crime Scene Response Units.
And what is sort of the difference between a forensic scientist 2 versus a forensic scientist 1?
A forensic scientist 1 is still in training at the crime lab.
And did you start as a forensic scientist 1 when you came into this particular unit?
Yes, I did.
And about how long a period or process is it from the time that you start as a forensic scientist 1 before you become a forensic scientist 2?
It took me approximately 9 to 10 months to be signed off to be a forensic scientist 2.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what goes on as far as that process is concerned, going from a forensic scientist 1 to a forensic scientist 2?
During that time period, we are being trained in the various types of analysis that we'll perform in the Criminalistics Unit.
And what exactly does that training sort of consist of?
The training is broken up into modules, which addresses each type of analysis. At the end of each module, we take a written exam, an oral exam, and a hand-on practical exam. Once each module is successfully completed, we'll move on to the next module.
And what are your duties as a forensic scientist in the Criminalistics Unit and the Crime Scene Response Unit?
In the Criminalistics Unit, I examine items of evidence submitted by law enforcement personnel or crime scene responders for the presence of biological fluids such as blood, semen, and saliva, as well as trace materials such as hairs and fibers. I also perform gunshot residue collection and damage analysis.
And with respect to the Crime Scene Response Unit?
For the Crime Scene Response Unit, I respond to crime scenes. I document crime scenes, analyze or test evidence, preserve the evidence, and then transport that evidence back to the crime lab.
And now, with reference to your training experience, specifically in the Crime Scene Response Unit, what is, based on your training experience, what is sort of the definition of what is a crime scene?
A crime scene is any location that may contain evidence related to a crime.
Now, with regard to those 2 positions, what, if any, training did you receive in regard to those 2 units that you're currently in while you were at the lab?
I'm sorry, are you speaking about the crime scene training specifically?
Crime scene training, yes. Let me ask you first to start with the criminalistics training.
The criminalistics training, I completed modules on body fluid identification such as blood and semen, trace analysis, identification of hairs and fibers, pattern evidence such as bloodstain pattern evidence, as well as damage analysis.
And as far as the training was concerned with regard to the crime scene response?
I received training in proper documentation using sketches and diagrams of the scene. I also received training in trace collection at crime scenes, as well as gunshot residue collection at crime scenes.
Now, the crime lab that you work for, is that lab accredited?
Yes, it is.
And what does that, as far as accreditation, what does that mean?
Accreditation is a voluntary quality assurance process that the laboratory is a part of, or an outside body evaluates our crime lab to ensure that our personnel, procedures, and instruments are held to certain scientific standards.
And the outside sort of vendor or the outside accrediting agency, who is that in regard to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
Our laboratory is accredited by ANAB, which stands for ANSI National Accreditation Board, and ANSI is another acronym that stands for American National Standards Institute.
And as far as that accreditation is concerned, how often is that something that that your lab undergoes, or is there a certain audit process? How is accreditation sort of achieved?
We are audited, I believe, I want to say every 2 years, but I'm not 100% sure. They come out to the lab and they go through certain systems or have a certain scope in which they audit us. We also do internal audits as well.
And as far as that accreditation is concerned, is that something that was up to date in the month of January of 2022?
Yes, it was.
And is it up to date currently as well?
Yes.
Now, your work, I believe you just alluded to this as far as your testimony, but does your work go through some sort of review process?
Yes, every assignment that I complete goes through both a technical review process and an administrative review process.
Can you explain a little bit about what each of those is and what it means?
A technical review process is done by an independent analyst, either a peer or a supervisor, who will look through my file and determine whether or not they can come to the same conclusions that I came to based on my notes.
Are you familiar, based on your training and experience within the lab, of something called a proficiency test?
Yes, I am.
And can you explain to the jury what is your understanding? What is a proficiency test?
Proficiency tests are given in the different types of analysis that we do at the lab to ensure that we are maintaining our competency in that type of analysis.
And about how often are these administered, or how often do you take proficiency tests?
For biological fluid identification, I take 2 per year. For trace identification, I take 1 per year. And for crime scene response, I take 1 per year.
And these proficiency tests, are they required by the accrediting body ANAB that you were referring to?
Yes, they are.
And did you take a proficiency test in hair and fiber identification in 2022?
Yes, I did.
And what was the outcome of that proficiency test?
That was successfully completed and required a remediation.
Can you explain to the jury what remediation is and why this specific proficiency test required remediation?
A remediation occurs when you have an inconsistent answer with that is expected by the laboratory or by the test provider. In this particular instance, I had an inconsistent answer with the expected laboratory result.
And how was the remediation completed in this instance?
After the inconsistent answer was identified by my technical leader, we had a verbal discussion about why I came to the conclusion I did. To be more specific, each item had 2 samples. One of the samples for item 4, I determined as being a human hair without a root, when in fact the root was present. We had a discussion on how I came to that conclusion, and then she mounted that hair back on the microscope, and we discussed different ways that I could have come to the correct conclusion.
And during that remediation process, were you permitted to continue to perform casework during that time?
Yes, I was. I was permitted to continue to perform casework in hair and fiber identification. However, I was temporarily asked to not perform technical reviews of my peers' work on hair and fiber identification.
And was prior casework that you had completed evaluated to verify that the previous reports were issued correctly?
Yes, they were.
And what was the determination in regard to that?
No previous casework was affected by this error.
And have you since completed additional proficiency tests in hair and fiber identification?
Yes, I did.
And what were the outcomes of those subsequent proficiency tests?
Those were successfully completed without needing any additional remediation.
As far as the remediation was concerned, if you could just explain to the jury sort of what what the issue was and what that remediation process looked like again?
Sure. So I received 4 items in hair and fiber identification. Each item was told that they came from the same source. Item number 4 consisted of 2 items. One was a hair with a root. The other was also a human hair with a root, but I had said the root was absent. That was due to the fact that I didn't see anything like that at the microscope. It was something that was new to me. My technical leader reviewed that hair with me under the microscope. She showed me various characteristics such as the loss of scale pattern and the soft appearance of the root, which I thought was damage. Because we had this discussion and I agreed with the different characteristics that she showed me, she then gave me several hairs, both with damage and with roots, so that I could basically continue to understand the difference of what I was looking at. Once she looked at all my notes and agreed with everything that I had done, she then issued me an additional test to demonstrate my continued competency in this.
Now, how many criminalistics cases have you processed over your time at the lab?
Over 1,000.
And how many scenes have you processed in regard to your work with the crime scene response?
I responded to approximately 150 scenes, 80 of which I was the lead investigator on.
And how many exams have you completed with regard to motor vehicles?
Approximately 65.
Now, if I could ask just a general question as far as blood testing is concerned, how is it that you test for blood?
Normally, I would test for blood by locating a visible red-brown stain or an area that may contain blood. I perform a screening test, which is not specific to blood, but other items may also come up positive for screening tests. If that screening test is positive, I go on to perform a confirmatory test.
And as far as the screening test is concerned, can you explain to the jury sort of what it is that you do in performing that screening test?
The screening test is a 2-step process. I take a cotton swab, which I apply sterile water to. I take that cotton swab and apply it to the area that I would like to test. And then I add my 2 chemicals to the swab. Depending on what type of screening test I perform, there'll be a color change, either blue or pink for blood.
And with regard to the confirmatory test, can you explain to the jury sort of what does that consist of?
If the screening test is positive, I'll go on to perform a confirmatory test, or again, a cotton swab is applied to the area of interest, or I may take a cutting depending on what the substance is. I then add a chemical to that cutting or swab, and then the liquid portion is added to a test card, something similar to a COVID, if you've taken a COVID test or a pregnancy test, the liquid is spotted at one end of the card and it flows up the strip. If there's 2 lines, it's positive. If there's 1 line, it's negative.
And through your training experience and work with the lab, are you familiar with a term called QLIM or QLIM?
Yes, I am.
And can you explain to the jury what QLIM means or how it's applied?
QLIM stands for quantity limited, which means that the sample, if it's being sent forward to DNA, would not be able to be divided in 2. Typically, we divide each sample going forward to DNA into 2, 1 to be tested in our DNA unit and 1 to be preserved for future testing. If an item is deemed QLIM, it means that that item, the entire item will be used up in the DNA processing.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, if I could turn your attention to February 2nd, 2022. Do you recall that date?
Yes, I do.
And on that date, were you dispatched to the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I was.
And do you recall approximately what time of day it was that you arrived at the Canton Police Department?
I believe it's approximately 9 a.m.
And when you arrived there, who, if anyone, beyond yourself from state police or other sort of personnel was present at the Canton Police?
Trooper Proctor, Trooper Dunn, and Trooper Clark from Crime Scene Services Unit.
And at some point subsequent to that, were there other members of the state police that arrived in that area as well?
Yes.
And was one of them a reconstructionist named Trooper Paul?
I'm not sure what the name was. I do know that the reconstruction team did come on after I arrived.
Now, where within the Canton Police Department were you directed to go, or where did you go?
I was directed to the Canton Police Department garage. And
when you got to the garage, what specifically did you observe there, and what, if anything, were you asked to do?
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And did you then examine that black Lexus SUV?
Yes, I did.
and you made certain observations of that. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, with respect to your observations that you made of the black Lexus SUV, was that memorialized in any way?
Yes, I took notes as I was examining it.
And you mentioned Trooper Clark as well. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And is he from the crime scene services section within the state police lab?
Yes.
And what, if anything, was he doing with reference to the black Lexus while you were making your observations or while you were conducting your work?
I believe he was taking photographs. I don't know any other, I don't know what else he performed while he was there.
And you want a may approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you a 3-page document. Just ask you to look at that. It'll help you. Do you recognize that document, ma'am?
Yes.
Or what do you recognize it to be?
Thank you for the one
It's,
gifted membership.
it looks like
Lorianne.
diagrams that I had taken at the scene. However,
Shout out
it
if you
appears to
got
be
it.
missing some information.
So as far as the notes that you took, they're not memorialized. Ms. Hartnett, you had taken notes on those diagrams when you were at the Canton Police Station in the garage.
Yes, I did.
And that diagram that you have before you. does
It's
not
very
contain
possible,
those notes,
Rhonda.
correct?
That's correct.
They're not supposed to, but sometimes they do,
But as far as the diagrams.
especially when there's no
that you
evidence
had before you and that you were taking notes
that
on.
Karen Reed did
Those are the
anything.
diagrams or a form of those diagrams.
Yes, that's correct.
And contained on that is certain information related to the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Includes the make, the model, license plate number. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could just read from that form as far as what you recorded, as far as the make, the model, and the license plate number.
The make is a Lexus. The model is LX570. The year was 2021. The registration is Massachusetts 3GC684. The VIN number is JTJF1Y7AX1M434347. The exterior color is black. The interior color is tan. The registrant is Karen Reed, and the exam location was Canton PD Garage.
I approach Jan, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm also seeking to introduce in the minutes.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you.
Ooh, Alan Jackson is going to be crossing this one.
Ms. Hartnett, with reference to the diagram that you took you took notes on, do you have a copy of that with you today?
Yes, I do.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask that the witness be allowed to take that out just to, as far as the testimony related to the diagram.
Okay.
And with the court's permission as well, I would ask if we could display what's now been marked as 137 on the screen.
Yes.
And Ms. Hartnett, before you, I believe, on that desk in front of you, there should be a laser pointer.
Yes.
Just click on the button there and point it at the screen if I or anyone asks you to do so with reference to the screen. So, Ms. Hartnett, with reference to what's up on the screen, the top of that first page of diagrams, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what you observed and what, if anything, you made note of in reference to your observations of the black Lexus on February 2nd.
In my notes, I had the vehicle was in overall good condition, and there was damage noted on the rear passenger side area. So that's not viewable in this particular diagram.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down to the bottom.
So in this area here.
And as far as the damage that you noted in the right rear passenger area, what was it specifically that you noted?
I noted there was a dent.
Yeah, don't read from there. What did you note?
There was a dent in the trunk door. There were scratches on the rear bumper, and there was a broken taillight.
Scratches on the rear bumper and a dent in the car door. Scratches.
Now, from the diagrams that are up on the screen right now, page 2 of what's been marked as 137, if you could, using that later.
Was there any paint found underneath John O'Keefe's fingernails of Karen Reed's car?
The damage to the dent, the rear door was in this area. The broken tail light was here. And then there were some scratches on the rear bumper as well.
What kind of scratches? Did you take a photo of them?
Scratches on the rear bumper on the area of that lift gate in the back. What, if anything else, did you observe sort of within that area?
I observed an apparent hair on the rear quarter panel about here. And I also noted some pieces of glass on the rear bumper. Excuse me, I want to say apparent pieces of glass.
Now, as far as that word, when you say apparent,
I want to see photos. Screw this diagram.
why that terminology? Why do you call it that at that stage when you're in the garage and you're making these observations?
At that time, I noted that it was an apparent hair because I had not done any microscopic observation of the hair.
And subsequent to that, did you do that microscopic examination of the hair that you observed in the rear area of that Lexus SUV?
Yes, I did.
And where was that?
That was performed back at the lab.
So that item was secured by yourself, taken back to the lab and examined microscopically.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with reference to what you termed as the apparent glass in the rear bumper, similar to the apparent hair, why is it that you use that terminology when you're making those observations of it in the garage?
I did not have any confirmation that it was glass. We refer to it as apparent glass and preserve it for the trace unit.
And when you say reserved it for the trace unit, if you could, just in general terms, describe to the jury what the trace unit is and what is it that they do as far as their analysis in relation to what you do.
Certain items will be examined in the trace unit for identification. So the criminalistics unit does not perform glass identification. That would be done in the trace unit. They would also, they also will look at other items such as plastic and hairs, but I'm not comfortable going into the analysis that they perform. I don't have the details on that.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, if I could have the third diagram in that. And again, Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is that was before you as the third diagram,
Yes.
or the third page of the diagram. And what, if anything, of significance did you note in this area of that?
I noted the items that were located within the vehicle. There were some boxes on the back seat of the vehicle. There was also a package in the vehicle and some clothing and miscellaneous items in the trunk.
Now, as far as the items that were contained within the trunk, how high up were they? Let me ask you this. As far as the rear window of the trunk area, was there anything obstructing that?
I don't recall at this time.
Ms. Gilman, you can, excuse me, you can take that down. Can I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you initially a set of 18 photographs, just ask you to generally look at those, and I'm just going to ask you, generally speaking, if you recognize what is contained there. And ma'am, do you, generally speaking, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of the black Lexus SUV that I examined at the Canton Police Department.
And what's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed as far as the black Lexus on that date of February 2nd?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I want to see some excuse in the minutes and next minutes.
No objection.
Your Honor, if I may, I don't mean to,
So Madam Court Reporter needs to,
I understand. So all I'm asking, Your Honor, is if I may approach just to show a couple more photographs while the court reporter is recording so that the witness may review them. Are we done?
If anyone speaks before I'm done, it won't be on the record. It's 138 to 155.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, with court's permission.
so Mr. Lally, you really need to keep your voice up and the witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor.
What is
Your
wrong
Honor,
with
with
Lally
court's
today? I
permission,
mean,
may
I understand he's a little
publish,
sick,
those
but he can't
photographs
keep
that
his
are now
voice
marked
up.
For the jury.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could start with.
I'm not trying to hate on the guy, but for the God's sake, man. You're in a courtroom. If you can't do it, find someone else who will fill your spot for a minute.
Ms. Hartnett, you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That is a picture of the license plate of the black Lexus SUV.
And if I could have the next photograph, Ms. Gilman, 2499. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That is the front end of the Lexus SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, the next photograph, 2500. And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen is this exhibit 140?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize within this photo?
It's the exterior of the Lexus SUV.
And as far as
Okay,
the
finally we get some
inside of
photos.
the garage at the Canton Police Station, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In addition to the vehicle, is this a fair and accurate portrayal of what the inside of the garage looked like when you were there that day on February 2nd?
Yes.
And if I could have the next photograph, Ms. Gillen, 2501. And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And which part of the vehicle are we looking at in this photograph?
Looks like the front passenger side of the Lexus SUV.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman, 2502. And do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph as well?
Yes,
And which side of the vehicle are we looking at this point?
the driver's side.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2505. And do you recognize what's in this photograph, Ms. Harnett?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize this?
That's the rear driver's side of the black Lexus SUV.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman, 2506. Do you recognize this as well?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize this?
That's the rear of the black Lexus SUV.
As far as the caution tape that's up and around the vehicle, is that something that was around the vehicle at the time that you first came into the garage?
Yes, it was.
Now, from this photograph 2506, which is exhibit 145, using the laser pointer before you, if you could draw the jury's attention to the damage that you were talking about, where you observed that located on the vehicle.
There's damage here on the bumper, and there was also damage to the rear door. I think it may be blocked by the caution tape.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2508.
I want to see these so-called scratches.
147. Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in a little.
That did not make impact with the human body.
The damage that you were talking about that may have been blocked by the caution tape in the prior exhibit. Do you see that in this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, before you draw the jury's attention to where in this exhibit you observed that damage.
Right here. It's on the rear door, right underneath the window.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, as far as crime scene response is concerned, when you're doing this kind of examination of a motor vehicle, can you explain to the jury sort of what that process entails and what is it that you're doing over the course of your examination?
I complete an overall visual examination of the vehicle, noting any damage or anything that stands out that should be recorded. I then look for any stains or material that is on the vehicle, specifically any transfer that could have been left behind by a victim.
And as far as making those observations, what, if anything, do you then do with regard to those observations that you made from visual inspection?
I'll then perform testing on any stains that I did note or any areas of interest, and then collect anything that needs to be collected.
Now, with respect to this vehicle and this examination, what is exactly that you were requested to examine?
I was informed that this vehicle may have been involved in a hit and run, so I was requested to examine it for biological material.
And what, if any, information were you given upon arrival to the Canton Police Department in regard to that?
I was informed that the victim had scratches on his arm, as well as the fact that the car had been towed through a blizzard.
And did you perform any testing with relation to the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And what was that testing that you performed?
I performed blood screening on the lower lying areas of the undercarriage, on each side of the tire flap, as well as the edge of the bumper and the exhaust pipe.
And what were the results of that testing that you performed there in the garage?
Those were negative.
And what, if any, evidence did you collect while you were either from the vehicle or from any other source while you were at the Canton Police Station that day?
I collected the apparent glass from the rear bumper. I collected a paint standard from the area of damage on the rear door. I also collected a paint standard from the area of damage on the rear bumper, as well as the apparent hair from the rear quarter panel. And I collected the taillight housing from the vehicle.
And turning away from that just for a moment, Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for photograph 2512. And Ms. Hartnett, direct your attention up on the screen. What's been now been marked as exhibit 150. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And what, if anything, of significance in relation to items collected or items to observe, do you observe in this particular photo?
I observed the apparent glass on the rear bumper.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2515. And again, up on the screen, what's now been marked as exhibit 153. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Now, as far as that area that you were talking about where you recovered, which you termed initially in the garage as an apparent human hair, do you see the location of that within this photograph?
Is it possible to zoom in a little bit on the area right next to the rear tail light? To the best of my recollection, it was in this area.
Now, as far as areas where you observe certain items or where damage is indicated or observed by you, is that later marked in some fashion?
I note the damage in my notes.
But as far as on the physical item itself, is that marked in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, I'll use stickers to indicate areas that I would then refer to back in my notes.
So that second set of photographs that I placed before you when the stenographer was marking those exhibits, do you generally recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes.
What do you recognize those?
These are pictures of the interior of the black Lexus SUV.
May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
You're on the phone, I'll seek to introduce in a bit. These, just 4 photographs as the next exhibit.
Is there an objection, Mr. Jackson?
No objection to those.
I'll take those. Thank you very much. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask to publish those for the jury as well.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2521. Ms. Hartnett, again, direct your attention to the screen. Do you recognize what's now been marked as exhibit 156?
Yes,
What do you recognize that to be?
that's the driver compartment of the black Lexus SUV.
And if I could have Ms. Gilman photograph 2527.
Your Honor, may I have just a moment with counsel?
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor, appreciate it.
So Ms. Hartnett, direct your attention to the screen, photograph 2527, that's now been marked as exhibit 157. Do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And what is depicted in that photograph, ma'am?
It's the front seat area of the black Lexus SUV.
And specifically, as far as the center console area of that vehicle, is that fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed inside the vehicle on February 2nd?
Yes.
And lastly, from this package, Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2535. And Ms. Hartnett, 2535, which has now been marked as exhibit 159, do you recognize what's up on the screen there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the interior of the trunk of the black Lexus SUV.
And is that fair and accurate portrayal of the interior of the trunk as you observed it in the Canton Police Department garage on February 2nd?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing another series of 9 photographs. Again, just ask you to look at those. Look up when you're finished, but really what I'm going to ask you is, do you recognize what's depicted in this? And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And generally speaking, what's depicted in those 9, that set of 9 there?
These are pictures of the rear passenger area of the black Lexus.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm also introducing Mitch as the next time exhibit.
Is there any objections to Jackson?
None, Your Honor, thank you.
Well, you really have to keep your voice up.
I'm sorry?
You really have to keep your voice up.
I apologize, Your Honor.
One sixty through 166 on.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish portions of this for the jury as well?
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2539. Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is photograph 2539. That's now been marked as exhibit 160. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the rear passenger area of the black Lexus.
Now, as far as the damage that you observed from the broken taillight, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, direct the jury's attention to that, or what's visible of that in this photograph.
This area here is the broken taillight.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have next photograph 2540.
It's not a clerk. It's a court reporter, and she is talking into it. She's transcribing it.
Where you observe, if anywhere in this photograph, damage to the right rear passenger.
There's damage in this area here to the rear tail light.
From the damage that you observed, it essentially wraps around from both the back and from the passenger side of the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2554.
Mark Davis says the issue I have with that jury instruction, what if a juror thinks the witness is lying? Then the no becomes a yes and the question becomes evidence. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
And talking before, earlier in your testimony about some stickers,
Exactly.
some
It's
sort of
a
evidentiary marker that you would put on an item that you're examining, correct?
Correct.
And do you see
Terrible.
any of that in this photograph here?
terrible
Yes, I
way of
do.
going about it.
Direct the jury's attention using laser pointer to where you observe that and what if any area of damage or what that's denoted.
There's a sticker here. And,
She's
I know you
influencing the
can't see it. I
jury.
don't know if you can zoom in.
I don't like when jurors are being influenced by outside
There's
sources,
a letter
including
on
the
the sticker, I
judge.
believe it's A, that denotes that there's something there that I was going to collect. And right next to that sticker here is the apparent hair that I noticed.
Gentlemen, if I could have photograph 2558. My fault, 2556. And similarly, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize anything in this photograph in regard to something that you had marked?
Yes, that's the rear bumper of the SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in a little on that placard. And Ms. Hartnett, in this photograph, what if anything is depicted that you denoted something sort of black or further examine at a later?
There's pieces of apparent glass here on the bumper.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you another series of 4 photographs. If you could just move those up on your finish. Do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
This is the rear passenger exterior right below the tail light on the Lexus SUV.
And Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Yes. Come up, please introduce you as the next exhibit.
No objection.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photographs to the jury?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2573. Ms. Hartnett, again, photograph 2573, what's now marked as exhibit 169, and recognize what's depicted.
Jay Water, Roadless Wolf
Yes,
says,
I
I want
do.
to see the full layout of the garage, inside, top, and bottom. Something seems off about the angles, multiple car doors. Where's
This is
the
the
photo
area
shot?
of
Where,
the
where were
rear
the photos
passenger side
shot?
of the vehicle, just below the tail light.
I agree.
And Ms. Gilman, if I get asked sort of towards the top center of that photograph, if you could zoom in on that area. Ms. Hartnett, do you observe another sort of sticker or placard that you placed in that area?
Yes, I do.
And what, if anything, is that in reference to?
I'm sorry, I can't see what the letter is on it, so I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
If I could ask Ms. Gilman.
So, Mr. Lally, when you when you put your head down to read, your voice goes down considerably. We can't get a recording of your voice, so you need to speak up.
Understood. Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2576. And Ms. Gilman, if you could, with reference to the two areas up on that, if you could zoom in that area. Sorry, first on the one below. Ms. Hartnett, can you see better there as far as what the sticker is and what you had noted there?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what you had noted in that particular area?
I noted there were scratches in that area.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could, the one above. Thank you. Also within this exhibit 172, there's another sticker further upward on the vehicle. What, if anything, did you note or observe in that particular area?
In that area, I noted the apparent hair.
Thank you. May I approach the witness stand, Your Honor?
Yes.
Another series of photographs of this asking the same question. If you could take a look at those and asking if you recognize generally what they are.
Next question, Mr. Lally.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. May I approach?
Yes.
I'll call on to introduce and admit as the next exhibits.
No objection.
173 through 186.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd ask to publish some of those photographs to the jury as well.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2558. And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's contained in photograph 2558, exhibit 173?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to just zoom in a bit on the sticker in the middle of the screen. And again, Ms. Hartnett, what is depicted in this photograph?
That is a picture of the apparent hair I noted in the area.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2561. For the record, this is exhibit 176. Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in a bit on the sticker in the middle there. It's hard to recognize what's depicted in this exhibit.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the damage I noted on the rear door.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach
Yes.
the witness? I'm showing you a series of 3 photographs. Those that we finished. And do you recognize those, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photos that I took of the taillight housing back at the lab.
And what's contained in that, those 3 photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of the taillight housing once you had removed it and taken it back to the lab?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm on to introduce the minutes and next exhibits.
No objection.
Thank you.
One 187 to 189.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so, Ms. Hartnett, before we get to those photographs, I do have a few questions. So it makes no difference to me, but I think we can turn the lights back. Thank you, Mr. Officer. Now, as far as the collection of that evidence that you collected from the vehicle specifically, how was that evidence collected? And again, you've received training in regard to collecting evidence, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the collection of evidence that you did in this case, was that in conformity with that training and experience that you have?
Yes, it was.
And so how did you collect those pieces of evidence from the vehicle on that particular?
It depends on what the item was, the taillight specifically, if that, is that what you're asking about?
Well, first, let me ask as far as the hair, and then I'll move on to some other items if that's all right. So as far as the hair was concerned, how was that collected?
I would have collected the hair with tweezers, put it in a glassine envelope, and then put that into a larger manila envelope.
And as far as those steps that you take, as far as the collection is concerned, what are some of the concerns for that, or why is it that you take those steps?
Prior to touching any evidence, I would put on gloves.
So the
I'm
car
not sure
got
in this
towed,
case whether I
and there's
used
still a hair
disposable
attached to
tweezers
the
or
paint.
reusable tweezers. If I used reusable
Huh.
tweezers, they would have been bleached prior to my using them. to prevent contamination.
Is this the woman that has her
Each of those sort of
certification in
steps that you
question?
take in your collection process, is that fair
I'm
to
not
say that
sure.
it's
Shelley,
to,
does
combat
chat know?
Yes, that's correct.
Chat, what do you guys
Now,
know
with
about
regard
this?
to, the
Her
paint
certification
chips or
being in
paint
question.
standards from the vehicle, how did you collect those?
Those
Time
have been
Lord Cloud
collected with
says
a
JR
disposable
came home
scalpel.
drunk.
I use it to scrape off pieces of paint from the vehicle,
As
which are
John
then put
showed
in a
up,
glassine envelope and
Had words with JR.
larger
JR
manila
got
envelope.
pissed off and
As
killed
far
John, and
as
then cover
the,
up started.
Pieces of glass from the bumper area of the vehicle.
Very
how were those
possible.
collected?
I collected those with gloves. I may have used tweezers. I don't recall at the time, but again, if I used tweezers, I would have used bleach tweezers or disposable tweezers.
Now, as far as that taillight assembly was concerned, how was that collected, or what, if any, issues did you have with regard to collecting?
I removed the taillight. Once I had the taillight housing in my possession, I did have trouble disconnecting it from the vehicle. So a police officer on scene did help me disconnect it from the vehicle so that I could properly package it.
And as far as what exactly was it that that officer helped you do, or what, if anything, did he do?
I believe he just removed, helped undo the wires that were in the back of the taillight so that I could properly hold it and didn't have to place it down anywhere.
So you had two hands on the taillight as he was performing that, is that correct?
Yes, I believe I did.
And as far as the area of the taillight that you were holding, you were wearing gloves, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And as far as that area that you were holding with your two gloved hands, did that officer touch any area of that part of the taillight?
Not to my recollection, no.
And do you recall whether or not that officer was wearing gloves himself when he disconnected that wiring?
I don't recall.
Now, as far as once you removed that taillight from there, what, if anything, did you do with the taillight there?
I put it into a brown paper bag and then transported it back to the lab where I then properly secured it in a box with added cushion from additional paper to ensure that no additional damage was done.
Now, with respect to your time at the Canton Police Station, were you presented with any additional evidence by any officers from the Canton Police?
Yes, I was.
And what were those items?
I was presented with a broken drinking glass that was reported to have been recovered from the scene at 34 Fairview Road. I was also presented with several solo cups filled with frozen red-brown stains.
Now, starting with the drinking glass, what, if anything, did you do with regard to the drinking glass?
I packaged it in a brown paper bag.
And with regard to the cups with red-brown stains contained within, what, if anything, did you do with regard to that?
I allowed the cups to thaw, and then I took 2 sterile swabs, like something similar to a Q-tip, and collected a sample from the red-brown stains in those cups.
And then what, if anything, after you took the swabbings from those solo cups, let me ask first with regard to the solo cups, what were done with those?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. So after you took the swabbings from the red cups, what, if anything, was done with the red cups?
I returned those to the Canton Police Department to store as they saw fit.
And as far as the swabbings that you took, what did you do with those?
I secured those in a glassine envelope, in a large envelope, and then transported those back to the lab.
Now, after your examination on scene, you returned back to the lab, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what items of evidence did you examine first in this case in the laboratory?
I examined the apparent hair from the vehicle as well as the broken taillight.
Now, starting with the examination of the taillight, well, let me ask, in general terms, when items are taken by you back from any kind of scene or any kind of place that you're processing, and you bring them back to the lab, what is it that you do with them when you get back to the lab?
When I get back to the lab, I ensure that they're packaged properly, that they're sealed, and they're stored in the appropriate location within the lab. I also enter them into our laboratory information management system so that from that point forward, those items can be tracked throughout the lab.
Now, each of those, now when you come in with sort of a case, is there some sort of number or something that's associated with the case when you first sort of generate that?
Yes.
And do you recall the case number that you assigned or was assigned with regard to this investigation?
Yes, I do.
And what is that case number?
The case number at the lab was 22-2184.
Now, with regard to each specific item of evidence that's taken back to the lab and logged in, what, if any, numbers are assigned or associated with those particular pieces of evidence?
Each piece of evidence is given an independent lab item number.
Now, with respect to the taillight, that was labeled as 3-1, is that correct?
That's correct.
So with respect to item 3-1 or the taillight, can you explain to the jury the examination process that went into that?
Sure. I prepped my workspace by spraying it down with a 10% bleach solution. I also sprayed down any reusable utensils that I would need to use. I then applied a piece of butcher paper to protect the lab bench and prevent contamination. I would put on gloves, my lab coat, and mask before I examined any item of evidence. And then I took photographs of what the packaging looked like and then photograph of the piece of evidence itself.
And then from that specific item, did you perform any testing on that item?
No, I did not do any testing on the item.
And why not?
I was, due to the case history, there was no visible red-brown stains on the item, as well as the fact there was a very limited surface area for me to sample from. In addition, I was informed that the car had been towed through a blizzard. So given the fact that there was potentially very limited material on the taillight, if any type of testing that we do would remove additional material. So I made the conservative decision to take a swabbing of the item and send it forward for DNA.
And as far as that swabbing of the item for DNA purposes, can you explain sort of what the process is or how that's done?
Yes, we use a polyester swab, which is a flat spatula-shaped swab. I apply sterile water to the swab and rub the exposed areas of the taillight. And then that swab dries before it's packaged and sent to DNA.
Now, with the court's permission, could I publish for the jury what's now been marked as exhibits 187 through 189?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have first photograph 8970. Now, Ms. Hartnett, directing your attention to up on the screen now is exhibit 187. Again, do you recognize what's depicted in there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize it to be?
That is the taillight that I removed from the black Lexus SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 8971, next photograph. What's now on the screen is exhibit 188. Again, do you recognize what's depicted there?
Yes, I do.
And what is depicted there, and what, if anything, is, in addition to the taillight, what, if anything, are you?
That is the taillight from the black Lexus SUV from a different angle. I'm holding up a ruler to show the scale of the item.
And lastly, photograph 8972 to 189. And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to the jury what we're looking at, perspective-wise, and what, if anything, you're doing in this book?
That is the back side of the taillight. And again, I'm holding up a ruler to show the scale of the item.
Okay. Ms. Gilman, you can take that time. Sorry, just one moment, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Hartnett, from your initial response to the Canton Police Department, you secured a number of different items from the Canton Police Station that day, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And those were labeled subsequently as items 3-1 through 3-13, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, turning your attention to item 3-6, that was the apparent hair, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in reference to your analysis with regard to the hair, that QLIM term that I asked you about before, QLIM, what, if any, significance did that terminology have to your examination of the hair?
Per protocol, all hairs that will go forward for DNA are considered QLIM, meaning that the entire sample will be used up during testing.
And with regard to item 3-6, the apparent hair, can you explain the examination process or what it is that you're doing with reference to that piece?
Yes. I take the apparent hair and I mount it on a glass slide using deionized water. I then put the slide under a microscope, and I'm looking for certain characteristics to determine if that piece of material is a hair or fiber or some other unknown material.
And as far as your examination is concerned in that microscopic analysis, what are some of the things or what are some of the characteristics that you're trained to look for that you observed in this specific instance to give you that determination that it was a human hair?
On the exterior of the hair, there'll be scales, and depending on the shape, it can help you determine whether or not the hair is an animal hair or a human hair. Human hair have imbricate scales, which look like overlapping shingles with a wave-like edge. That is what I observed on this hair. In addition, the internal characteristics of the item were looked at. Running through the center of a hair is a medulla, which is a channel. Animal medullas and human medullas look different in that human medullas will have sort of an amorphous shape, which means they don't really have any shape at all, whereas an animal medulla will have distinctive or can have distinctive patterns within them. Also, the size of that medulla or channel that runs through the center of a hair in a human hair is approximately 1/3 the entire width of the hair, or in animals, it may be much larger than that.
Now, as far as based on your examination of this particular item, this hair, what, if any, opinion or what, if any, determination did you come to in regard to that item that you examined microscopically here?
I determined the hair was consistent with the human hair with a root.
Now, as far as that item was concerned, was there any measurements that were done in reference to that?
Yes, there were.
And do you recall what the measurements were or what the length was?
I'd have to refer to my notes if that's
Or
possible.
may the witness refer to her notes just to reference that?
Yes.
The hair was approximately 7/8 inches long.
Now, with regard to item 3-6, the hair, did you perform any testing on that?
No, I did not perform any testing.
And why not?
The only type of analysis done on hairs in the criminalistics unit is a visual microscopic examination.
So where did the hair go from there?
At that point, I cut the hair into two pieces, one end that contains the root and then the remaining end of the shaft. The root end went to our internal DNA unit.
Now, it may be pretty well understood, but when you say root end versus shaft end, can you explain to the jury what you mean by those sort of descriptions?
The root end is the end that would have been attached to the scalp, and the shaft end is just the remaining outer portion of the hair.
And how is it that you're able to determine sort of the difference between the root end and the shaft end?
Through the microscopic characteristics under the that I viewed.
Now, with reference to that item 3-6, the hair, were any decisions made in regard to what testing could or would be performed on those samples?
Yes, based on the criminalistics protocol, the root end of the hair would be tested internally in our DNA unit, and if potential testing needed to be done on the shaft end, that would be sent out to an external lab.
And do you know why that is?
We don't perform that type of DNA testing at our lab.
And that's something, you're familiar with the term mitochondrial DNA testing?
I am familiar with it, but I don't really have a full understanding of it.
But as far as your understanding is the type of testing that would have had to been sort of sent out to an external vendor, that would be, the type was mitochondrial?
Yes, that was my knowledge at the time, yes.
Now, at some point, did you have a conversation with regard to examination of the remaining items in this case sometime in May of 23?
Yes.
And what was discussed?
It was discussed that I would examine the clothing and some of the other items for biological testing.
And specifically, there was an item 7-18, which was a gray sweatshirt attributed to Mr. John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, from that, as far as sort of an additional analysis or an examination of those clothing items, what is it that you were doing and what is it that you were looking for in regard to your examination of the clothing items?
I examined the item for biologicals. In this case, I was looking to determine if there was any blood present on the item. I also did damage analysis of various areas on the sleeve and the front and back of the item. I also took a trace collection from the item and additional DNA samples for that, additional skin cell collection samples from the item.
Now, starting first with, as far as that specific item, 7-18, the gray sweatshirt, what, if any, observations in general did you make when you examined it?
There were red, brown, and brown stains on the item. There was damage from the top of the shirt to the bottom of the shirt, as well as across each sleeve of the shirt. I also noted additional damage on the right sleeve.
Now, each of the areas of damage that you observed, similar to what we saw with the vehicle, were those areas marked as well?
Yes, I marked each of those areas that I was going to do further analysis on with a number.
And there were essentially 13 different areas on that sweatshirt that you had marked, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just showing you a series of 6 photographs, and again, asking you to look at those and look up when you finish.
This testimony is so dreadful, folks. I am literally dying over here.
And do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are the photographs I took of item 7-18, the long sleeve gray shirt.
And those are sort of the preliminary or overall photographs, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm on the seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibits.
No objection.
Thank you.
Sorry, my camera just went out. I don't know what happened there.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's back.
Ms. Hartnett, before I turn.
Everybody
to the
tells me that. I don't wax my
follow-up
eyebrows.
question, and you had been talking
I
about.
was born like
talking
this.
about
I've never touched these
between the
puppies,
root end,
ever.
And the shaft end of the hair. You had mentioned
True
that
story.
the root end is typically something that would be attached to the scalp. Is that correct?
Cunning linguist.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. We don't perform body origin identification.
And so to that point, as far as the root end of the hair that was attached to the body at some point, whether it's the head, an arm, a leg. Of course, permission, I would ask to publish some of these photographs for the jury as well.
Okay.
7, 8, 9. Ms. Hartnett, putting up on the screen now what's been marked as Exhibit 190. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That is the photograph I took of item 7-18. It is the exterior front.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9790, the next photograph. What's up on the screen is Exhibit 191. You recognize that as well, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the exterior rear of item 7-18.
And if I could have the next photograph, Ms. Gilman, 9791. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen now is Exhibit 192?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to the jury what that is?
That is the interior front of item 7-18.
And lastly, not lastly, for this purpose, photograph 9792. And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen is Exhibit 193?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the interior back of item 7-18.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9795. Again, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 194?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the exterior front of item 7-18, and it also contains markers that I placed on the item to note areas of damage.
And the next photograph would be Ms. Gilman 9796. If you could zoom in on that a little. Now, Ms. Hartnett, what we're looking at here, that's the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt of item 7-18, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so, starting with some of the 13 different areas that you labeled, this starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, and goes up through 9, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I approach the witness again, Your Honor.
Yes.
Hartnett showing you another series of photographs. Just ask if you could review those, look up when you're finished. Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are close-up photos of the areas of damage 1 through 5.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Come on, to introduce and admit as the next exhibits.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Before we begin, Madam Court Reporter, Your Honor, if I may approach just to show the next series of photographs.
Okay.
It's 196 through 205.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs for the jury as well.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9811. With respect to what's up on the screen, Ms. Hartnett, you recognize what's now been marked as Exhibit 196.
Yes,
What do you recognize that to be?
that is an area of damage that I noted as area 1 in my notes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have, excuse me, photograph 9812, the next one. Again, Ms. Hartnett, you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 197.
Yes, I do.
And with respect to this, what are you doing here?
That is a close-up photo of the same area of damage, area 1.
That has some measurement that you're taking with reference.
Oh, apparently this
Yes, that's correct.
this witness that is currently on the witness stand failed her proficiency exam. I guess the first time around.
Yes, I did.
I can't wait. Oh my God, Cross is gonna be so good. My watch is lagging. I just realized.
Again, this is area 2, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9815. Again, what's up on the screen is Exhibit 200. Recognize this as what now?
That's a photograph of the area 3 that I noted.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9817. Now, with respect to what's now been marked as Exhibit 202, do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And is that the number 4 area that you noted on the right arm sleeve of the gray sweatshirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9819. What's up on the screen is Exhibit 204. Do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And again, what is depicted in Exhibit 204?
That's the area of damage number 5 that I had in my notes.
I approach again, Your Honor.
Yes.
The photographs that I placed before you while the stenographer was marking the prior exhibits, do you recognize what's depicted in those?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe for the jury, sort of generally speaking, what's depicted in those, ma'am?
These are close-up photos of areas 6 through 11 that I noted on the long sleeve. gray
Sorry, you
shirt.
guys. My girlfriend just made me a rice bowl with chicken,
Yes.
mushrooms, broccoli, and avocado. And I'm like dancing over here. This is so delicious.
And if I may,
Oh my
introduce you,
God.
it's just to present another set.
Okay.
Wait, what are you talking about? What lag? There is no lag. If you're lagging, that's on your end. We're not lagging over here. Hey, babe. Chad is asking me if it's okay to share my meal with them. Can I share? No. Just yes or no. Okay. Chandler, since she was the one who prepared the meal, said I can share with you guys. Open wide.
Exhibits 206 through 217.
Thank you.
Oh, really? The video was lagging. I didn't notice. Oh, got you. I'm fine. It's just a cord. Okay.
So, Ms. Hartnett, what's contained in these photographs now been marked as Exhibits 206 through 217. Those essentially sort of the same close-ups and then a close-up with the measurements that the jury just saw in regard to what you had marked as 1 through 5.
Yes, that's correct.
And this is just 6 through 11 on that.
Let me
same
refresh
area
real
on the
quick.
right,
See if it fixes it.
Right sleeve of Ms. Now, with regard to the photos that I just placed before you a moment before, do you recognize what's depicted in those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are the areas of damage 12 and 13 on the rear of the sweatshirt.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm off to introduce in a minute.
No. It's not Control F5. It's Alt F4. If you press Alt F4 on your computer, like try this right now. Press Alt F4 on your computer, and it will refresh the feed automatically. Alt F4. And it refreshes the feed. I wonder how many people fell for that.
Photographs for the jury.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9837. And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 218?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the exterior back of the gray sweatshirt.
And the items marked that you labeled as 12 and 13, are they depicted on that?
Yes, they are.
Wait, Crime Spy, did you actually go for it?
The laser pointer just draw the jury's attention to where 12 and 13 are.
Oh my God.
Is it possible to zoom in on the
I was trolling
numbers?
you
I
guys.
can't read them from here.
I was trolling. Alt F4 shuts down your window.
So there's area 2 and area 12 and area 13.
And this gentleman, if I could have photograph 9838. Exhibit 219 up on the screen. Is that just a closer image of those areas you marked as 12 and 13? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with respect to the other photographs that I had placed before you when the stenographer was marking those, do you recognize in general terms what's depicted in those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are additional pictures of the sweatshirt in which I've also made some notations of areas that need further testing.
May I approach Ron?
Yes.
Call off the seat. Introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
If I may, I want to just place these before the witness.
All right, let me go ahead and set up the afternoon stream. What's her name? Excuse me.
It's 222 and 230.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, Ms. Hartnett, before I get to what's now been marked as exhibit 222 through 230, if I could just ask you a couple questions in regard to damage that you noted on this item or really any item. What is the process that you would go through as far as classifying damage to a clothing item?
I look at the macroscopic characteristics of the area of damage, and then I also examine the area of damage underneath the microscope.
And so what would lead you to make that sort of classification as far as something is damaged?
I look at the overall shape. I also look at the fiber ends. For instance, a tear will have rough fiber ends and possibly separation of the weave of the fabric, or a cut, you have even ends without any fraying.
Now, are you able to tell from your examination of those fibers and of those clothing materials sort of what caused those tears and cuts?
No.
Now, are you familiar through your training experience with something called an ALS or an alternate light source?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is and what, if any, use it had to you in this case?
An alternate light source is a light that uses a different wavelength that enables visualization of some biological fluids that can't be seen necessarily with the naked eye. On this particular shirt, I did use the alternate light source.
And what, if anything, did you observe when you used that?
I used that light source around those areas of damage to determine if there was any biological fluids that were fluorescing. The ALS did not show any stains in that area.
Now, with regard to what you had labeled as sort of tears or cuts 1 through 9 that you noted, did you do any additional testing or collecting specifically from those areas?
I collected 2 cotton swabs moistened with sterile water around those areas of damage.
And why did you do that?
It was told to me that potentially the victim may have been bitten by a dog during an incident. So I was taking swabs of that area to be sent out to determine if there's any dog DNA on that area.
Now, is that kind of testing, as far as canine testing or animal testing, is that something that your lab at the State Police Crime Lab is accredited or authorized to do?
No, we do not do that type of testing.
And is that sort of sent out to an external vendor then?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that something that you had done on any prior cases or any previous situations where you had collected items and sent it out to a specific lab for animal testing?
I did consult once with an external lab on taking those types of collections, but this is the first time I've collected and actually sent something out for that type of testing.
And specifically in this type of testing and in this case, what lab were those items sent out to?
We use the UC Davis Veterinary Lab in California.
And as far as prior to collecting or prepping or doing anything as far as collecting samples from that, who, if anyone, did you talk to, or what, if any, direction did you receive in regard to collecting those samples?
I'll allow it.
I emailed Terry Kuhn, who is one of the analysts at the clinic, who aided me in how best to collect the sample for their lab.
And what you were directed to do as far as collection, packaging, and shipping, was that at the direction of the UC Davis lab?
Yes, that's correct.
And you performed those functions in conformity with what Ms. Kuhn told you, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with regard to those items, did you note, with regard to the clothing items, as far as the gray sweatshirt was concerned, did you note any stains on those areas? On that clothing item?
Yes, I did note stains in those areas.
And then what, if any, testing was done on those stains that you observed?
Can you be more specific what stains you're referring to?
So what I'm specifically referring to is the items on the gray sweatshirt, item 7-18, as far as any stains that you observed on there. Again, sort of moving on from what you had collected for the UC Davis lab, but in other areas of that item. Well, let me actually first turning back to that. So the item that we were talking about as far as where you collected stains from that were sent off to the UC Davis lab, which item were they collected from and where on that item were they collected?
I collected 2 swabs from the areas around the damaged areas on the right sleeve. I wasn't necessarily taking them from any stains. I did use the ALS to determine if there were any stains there, which I did not visualize. So I was doing that for potential saliva collection from that area.
And thank you for the clarity. I think that was me confusing as far as the questions go. So turning away from that area as far as the collection for the UC Davis lab, in addition to that, what, if any, stains did you observe on that article of clothing 718, the gray sweatshirt?
I also observed numerous red-brown stains on that item of clothing.
And so with regard to those red-brown stains, what, if any, testing was done on those stains?
On each of those stains, I performed a blood screening test as well as a blood confirmatory test.
And are those the same sort of initial testing screening test you were talking about before, and then the confirmatory test?
Yes, that's correct. A different screening test was used in the lab than was used at the scene due to a protocol change, but essentially it's the same mechanism.
And was that with respect just to the gray sweatshirt, or were there other items of clothing of Mr. O'Keefe's that you
There's no need to type in all caps, folks. Time Lord Cloud says, Larry, do you think John's niece and nephew were
I
killed?
examined other
They
items
didn't
of clothing
testify
as
against
well.
Karen, they wouldn't get John's death benefits.
Now, if I could
No, I don't
bring
think
your
that at all.
attention back
No.
to what's now been marked as exhibits 222 through 230. Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs for the jury.
Okay.
That would be so against public policy.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could first have photograph.
And that would be out
981.
so quickly.
And what's been marked as exhibit 222. Again, you recognize what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And with reference to your observations of the red-brown stains on that clothing or any other item of clothing, similar to the tears or cuts or the damaged areas that you observed, were those areas similarly marked with some sort of sticker?
Yes, that's correct.
And is it sort of the same linear path as far as numbering, or is it lettering, or how do you denote those?
For the red-brown stains on this item, I use letters.
Starting with A and then sort of going through it, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Ms. Gilman, if I could have, photograph 9842. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That would be red-brown stain A that I noted on the sweatshirt.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9843. And what's up on the screen, which has been marked as exhibit 224, do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Those are red-brown stains B and C that I noted on the sweatshirt.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9844. What's up on the screen now is exhibit 225. Those are stains that you labeled B, C, and F, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's just sort of a pulled-out version of that to denote where B and C were located on the sweatshirt. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9846. And what's now up on the screen is exhibit 227. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little bit on this picture. And Ms. Hartnett, if you recognize what's up there on the screen as exhibit 227.
Yes, I do.
And these are two other things that you noted as far as D and E on the same item.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, with reference to the other photographs that I think you still have before you that I gave you when the stenographer was marking the last batch, do you recognize generally what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of item 7-17, the orange T-shirt that was told was belonging to John O'Keefe.
And what's depicted in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed as far as the orange T-shirt was concerned in your lab that day?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm up to seek to introduce the exhibits. The next exhibits.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I can read this.
No problem at all. It just feels like you're yelling at me when I read caps. By the way, chat, while we have a quick moment here, can somebody please explain to me what is going on with Robert Barnes? Why is he off the rocker? I don't mean to like, I don't know much about the guy. I just remember he created that. The only thing I know about him relating to me is he created this fake story about how I took a photo in the courtroom, which I didn't. I took it with my eyeballs and then I shared it.
Mr. Lally, we have a few minutes before lunch. Do you intend to display some?
I think
But
maybe.
Robert
if you do
Barnes
do it
has
quickly,
completely
do it
lost
now.
it. He's completely off his
Um,
rocker. He needs to like reel
If you're
himself
not, let's-
in.
We'll take a break. Jurors, we're going to
No,
take the lunch
that's-
and break.
All right, let's go. Lunch break.
I'm going to see counsel at 7. Please.
All rise for the court, please.
He's one of like people who comment on legal stuff, and I know he made some analysis, which I don't think is very good, about Nick's situation. So I guess I agree with Nate. I didn't talk about Barnes yesterday, but I alluded to him. He was one of the people I alluded to when I talked about the fact that it's one thing to present legal argument from the armchair in a classroom setting when you're living in a bubble. That's who I was talking about, actually, believe it or not. Am I pixelated? Is that what's happening? I have no idea what's going on. It's fine on my screen, but I see what you guys are seeing. I'm very blurry. Let me try something. Is it better now? It's not better now. I'm gonna be blocked next. Please go ahead. Block me. I don't fucking care. If he's gonna start blocking everyone that disagrees with him, he's about to have like 5 friends left, and one of them is Viva. Like, who does this guy think he is? You're not above anybody else, bro. All right, we'll be back in the afternoon stream. Don't worry about it right now. We'll see you guys in an hour. Bye, everybody. Oh, and by the way, let's see if we can hit 2K on the contributions. By the way, you guys are incredible. You guys are amazing. You raised like $500 in like literally an hour. Look at this. Look at this. This is insanity. You're at 790. The link is in the description below, by the way. The link is in the description below. You guys are incredible. I love you all. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the afternoon stream. 1:30. Oh, wait, 1:30? 30 minutes? That's it? We're getting a 30-minute break? Oh, this is bullcrap. Oh, this is bullcrap. I forgot that she's like running through this testimony because Lally is slow AF. All right, you guys. I'll see you. I'm on NBC. I'll see you guys in 30 minutes. Bye, everyone.